and then she left for the Netherlands, and she's been back for about a year and a half. So Blackboard's actually got an office down in Cape Town, outside of Cape Town. In the country, and they came up to come and do the demonstration. In the meantime, if you haven't got the evaluation form, please just raise your hand so I can bring you one. Thanks. Thanks, Andrew.
So, good morning. Oh, and here's another one that needs a So, good morning. As Khaled said, my name is Tamsin Wilkinson. I am the country manager for Blackboard in all Southern African countries, based out of Cape Town, and I'm South African, and have worked overseas and came back home to continue the work I was doing overseas, to do that work and support our clients locally. I'm going to introduce you to the rest of the team today. So I'm going to start with my colleague Richard. Oh, there he is. Yeah. This is my colleague Richard. Richard is my solution engineer. Richard, just want to say hello.
Hello everyone. It's good to be here. So I'm going to be doing a lot of the demo today, so I'll be taking you through the actual product. So unfortunately you have to listen to me for quite a while, so I'm sorry about that. But we'll take you through the products and we'll give you time to ask some questions as well.
Yeah, cool. Then what I decided to do was bring along the people that we work with on a daily basis to support our clients, because it's not just about one company and being a silver bullet that does everything for everyone, because that just doesn't exist. We work in partnership. We work with high-level partners. I'm going to introduce you. One of them is in the room today, I4 Corp. That's Nikki. Nikki runs the services team for I4 Corp. I4 Corp is a local channel partner. I'll tell you a little bit about them later. And then I've got my friends from AWS, Amazon Web Services, here today as well. We've got Linda. Hello.
Linda also from AWS. I get the education assistance from AWS.
And Tanya. Good morning, everyone. So we've come as a team because I want you to meet all the faces that would be supporting an organization like this. These are the faces that also support our other clients in the country, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So it would be helpful to us to know if there are any students in the room. Sort of. Probably an academic that also studying. Yeah, okay. You're a lifelong learner, that's very good. Okay, so we've got no real students, that's okay. And anyone else that's an academic, that's teaching? Anyone that is in the support services, so you offer instructional design services or your IT services? Okay, so it's kind of like a mix, I think, from seeing academics and support services. Is there anyone from the library? No. Is there anyone from the deans or from the management? All right, this is going to be fun. So, all right. Hannah, do you want me to get started then, or do you want us to wait a bit longer?
Let's get started.
Okay.
So
I'll leave the doors open, and if people want to come in, they can join us. Okay, great. So we've done an introduction. Today is going to be about connecting the dots. I'm a lifelong learner myself. My current interest happens to be astronomy. And I was thinking about this presentation today and thinking about the people I've been seeing. And what makes sense to me is that sometimes when you see a constellation, right, it's just a bunch of stars and dots. But if you connect those dots and you take a step backwards and you actually look at the image it creates, you start to see the bigger picture, right? And that's what we're here today to do. We're here today to show you that a learning management system itself is maybe just one of those dots. Your learning ecosystem is the Orion's image, right? We are part of your experience. We are part of your students' experience. We are not the be-all and end-all. We are here to support what you do and to support what your students expect. So moving on, the education landscape is evolving. You all know this. There are pressures from everywhere. You've got these global economies. Students are changing. their demands are changing, lecturers, pressures on our lecturers and teachers, especially around research, super important, and that's changing, pressures around budgets, and all of these things create this kind of world, a business of education, right? And so we have to always think about it from multiple perspectives. It's not only from a student's perspective, it's not only from a teacher's perspective, it's not only from an institution perspective. All of these things blend, and all of these things impact one another. So, we see the LMS as part of an ecosystem, right? You've already got some type of student information system, you'll have some type of library, you'll have research, you'll have teaching, reporting, content. There's a lot that goes on in this ecosystem, and the LMS has to be connected to many of those things. So what we do at Blackboard is we think of this as a flower model, where we think about it when we say, all right, we know that no LMS is a silver bullet, but what's important is that the LMS speaks to the other things that you do in your organization. So we look at it as a flower model, and we say, at the core you want to be strong, but you're open at the periphery, right? Meaning you can integrate and customize and change the way you need it to look. You need a strong core, but open at the periphery. And that gives rise to this ecosystem, a connected experience. And that connected experience really is in, sorry, it's really in response to a couple of things. So one of them is the fourth industrial revolution, right? So everyone's hammering on about this. I've been in multiple presentations all about what are we going to do with the fourth industrial revolution? How is it going to impact teaching? How is it going to impact students? How is it going to impact our curriculum? What does it mean for Africa? And that's important, and those are things we should be thinking about. So this ecosystem of learning becomes even more important in the fourth industrial revolution. And also, there's this desire for transformation in South Africa, digital transformation. I see it all the time, where we've got massification, we've got masses of people who want to be educated, who deserve to be educated, and we don't have bricks and mortar to accommodate everybody. So we need to use our online capacity and our digital capacity to accommodate that. And then, of course, increased demand on technological fit. As we grow, we change, and we add new technologies, things start to evolve and change, and you need technologies that work together. So at Blackboard, I'm going to stick to this theme of connecting the dots, right? We connect user experience. We believe in a connected user experience. What do I mean by that? I mean a connected experience across the devices that you use. You know, you should have a seamless experience when you're on your mobile device using your Blackboard platform, or whether you're on your laptop, or whether you're on a PC. You should have a seamless, connected user experience that makes you feel like you're part of the community. We also believe in connecting the data dots, right? We believe in surfacing data. There's so much rich data that's sitting in your student information system, that's sitting in your learning management system. We believe in surfacing that data, harnessing that data, and making it actionable. So, because data is useless if it's not actionable data, right? So it's about making data actionable so that we can put the power in a teacher's hand and say, here are the students that are struggling. Here are the students that are falling behind. Here are the students that are doing really well, and perhaps we should think of a way to encourage that behavior. So this is some of the things that learning data does: promotes self-regulated learning, supports proactive advising. This is nothing new. I think you've probably seen this before. The next connected experience or connected talk track I want to talk about is connecting your architecture. Now this is going to be a little bit more technical, but bear with me for a second because it is important. It's important because you might have a tool as a teacher that you want to plug into the LMS. The LMS should be open. It should be built on open standards, international standards, so that you can plug in the tools that you need into your LMS. That's what we're providing as a Blackboard platform. We are LTI compliant. We have SIS, your student information system integrates perfectly into the Blackboard environment. We have REST APIs for those who want to customize and build something themselves. And then it comes to partnership. I want to stop a minute for partnership because I want to emphasize this a little bit. Blackboard's been in South Africa for 21 years. We work with 17 educational institutions in this country. We have a base. We have a community of practice. We would love for BITS to be part of that community of practice. And our partners form part of that community, right? I've mentioned Eiffel Corp. Who is Eiffel Corp? They are a local partner. They partner with us, they represent us. They're our hands and feet on the ground. We're not some American company somewhere when someone needs help, they have to fly people into the country. No, we're here. We have offices here. Eiffel Corp have what, 50, 60 people working? We are hands and feet. We're on the ground. We understand the South African challenges, the context, the fees must fall. These are things we are intrinsically familiar with. And then we have our other partners, and I'm going to introduce you our partner here.
Sorry, we have to switch presentation. All right. As Thompson said, we are one of Blackboard is one of our big partners in learning management system, a global partner at that. And I think for me, the two things or three things that I want to leave with you is about speed and agility. So I recently joined AWS, and in my trying to catch up with what's happening in this space, I saw an interview from one of the academics at an Ivy Tech in the US, and he was talking about his experience or experience on moving to cloud technology. And he said one of the things that resonated with me was what he said. He said that it's a big university, 400,000 students. Some of them are part-time students, and they have to be registered for 3 years, and they keep them in the books for that time. So it's a lot of data, right? It's a lot of moving parts. And the example that he mentioned was that before cloud, in the old days, to run reports was quite a difficult task, which could take minutes to days to do that. And with the cloud, with this, the technology that cloud gives, that shortened that length to a 2 minute or half a minute to run a report. And what he then said to close the interview was that if information is available to you, you ask a lot of questions. So if it's difficult to get anything, you stop asking questions. And so that is the tool that that is the strength that these tools can give to the institution. The speed and the agility to be able to get information at your fingertips and ask a whole lot more questions to address some of the challenges that education institutions such as yourself have. So I'll just briefly explain what cloud is. I get that quite a lot, and I think we've tried to explain it in such a way that all of us can understand. And it really is about the fact that partners such as Blackboard have left the infrastructure management to companies such as ourselves because we've got scale. We've been doing this for over 10 years. We can give you speed and agility because of the critical mass and economies of scale. We are able to deliver that not only faster but cheaper. So cloud computing really is all about. It's about just flicking a switch on to let your electricity come through to your home instead of figuring out how to generate electricity. So some of the things that set us apart, besides our great leader who's well respected in terms of technology and that advancement, is the tenure in the industry. We've been around since 2006, so we are one of the oldest players in this industry, and we're a leader by far. Most of the competitors who you might hear about are way behind us in terms of the service and breadth of the breadth and depth of the services that we offer. We've got over 165 services that support the cloud workloads that we would get from an institution such as yourself. Our pace of innovation, we really go fast. Every year we are introducing new services, we are updating existing services, and that benefit is passed to you as soon as it happens. We don't have to wait very long. We've got a global footprint, and I think more importantly, probably for institutions such as yourself, is that we are the reason why AWS is in South Africa is it's invested in building the infrastructure in South Africa. So the first half of 2019, we are launching our region, which means that your data will be stored in South Africa, and we now have a full team that is here to support the South African business. So our pricing philosophy is talk about that, so you can stop investing or planning your projects long term, and getting those services available at the click of a button. And we've got an ecosystem of partners to support what Tamsin said. We work as an ecosystem of partners to deliver best student experience within our institutions. So I spoke about our leadership. Gartner for 10 years in a row has placed us as a leader in this industry, as you can see. And in terms of our completeness of vision and ability to execute, there is no better partner than AWS. So this slide, which I think is my last slide, if I remember, just shows the footprint, the global footprint that I touched on, and the fact that we are launching our services within South Africa within the first half of next year. And yeah, that's it from me, unless someone is got questions.
Sorry, so you're saying from the first half of next year, you'll be offering infrastructure
In South Africa.
the equipment will be in Thailand?
It's already in South Africa somewhere being built, yes, but we
But
will
by
launch,
next year,
yeah,
okay.
we will launch. We currently have universities that are utilizing our services, especially on learning management systems, such as UP, and utilizing some of our global infrastructure that's available to them. So we can offer services as of today, but to add on to that, we will have local presence.
So currently they're using other.
The other
So
regions.
currently, all of our South African clients are hosted out of Frankfurt because the GDPR regulations around data privacy are most strict in Europe and specifically in Germany. So we adhere to the most strict regulations because the POPIA Act is not being enacted, so it's still vulnerable. And so when it becomes enacted, we will be ready for it. But for now, we protect you with the most possible strict regulations.
So what kind of guarantees do you have for uptime, and what kind of bandwidth would you be able to provide?
Yes, so as we speak now, we offer very good guarantees, and some of my technical guys would have to. It depends on the service that's being utilized.
I can chip in if you want me to. So with Blackboard, you'll be guaranteed 99.9% uptime, and that includes zero downtime for updates from the Blackboard point of view. So as we upgrade your platform, there's no impact to academics and students. You'll just get a newer version when you wake up the next morning, which is just fabulous, I think. So it's similar to your iPhone. You go to bed, and an update gets installed overnight. We actually achieved much more than 99.9%, so that's the minimum level of guarantee. I think we actually achieved 99.97 over the last 12 months. So we are talking extremely high level of uptime, pretty much it's always on.
You're constructing infrastructure here. What kind of bandwidth is that infrastructure?
Unfortunately, I'm not aware of that, but I can be able to check that for you.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
We have our local servers are running our current LMS, and we have times of year where the servers are obviously coded, and obviously at times of year when they're not. How is that addressed?
So we would actually work with Amazon, and we would scale your environment to the number of students and the number of interactions you have with the system. And because you're on Amazon Web Services, it's flexible. So if you find that it's not enough, we will automatically rescale the environment to suit your needs. So at peak times, we'll scale the environment up, and at quieter times, we'll actually scale the environment down. You won't even know that that's happening. It's dynamic.
And that's the biggest probably benefit of cloud.
It really is.
Yeah, that's a cloud benefit, the flexibility in the system, and the fact that you don't get billed, right? So some clients will always say, oh, it's only going to go up. Now, if you're a self-person, you have to go buy hardware, you have to virtualize the system, or with us, you're not going to get a bill for that because we recognize that there are ups and downs every year.
And
Right?
we're paying for the software as a service.
You're paying for software as a service. The reason we have Amazon here today is because I want to show you that this is a partnership, right? We want to show you that we're local. We want to show you that ultimately this is going to be a relationship. In some ways, it's like dating, right? You can go and date the prettiest person at the bar, but then within a year find out that maybe they're not a right fit for your organization or for your family, and that it's not maybe, you know, the communication's not so good, and the family mother-in-law doesn't like them. You know, you could take that approach, because what we're saying is we want a long-term marriage with you. We want to look at this 10 years down the line and still be innovating, and still be giving you a seamless environment, and still giving you 99.97% uptime. This is just for the technical people. I don't know if this is of any value to some of you, but this is to show some of the integrations. So, yes, question.
So could students download files and use it offline?
Yes.
I'm going to cover that. I'm going to cover that.
So let me maybe take a moment to explain to me. So what we're going to do is, you've got all a document like this, a rubric. The start of this presentation is to lay the scene, lay the foundations. Who are we? Who are you talking to today, and why does that matter? How are we different to the other people that you'll be speaking to? Then what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the demo, which is what we're going to do now. We've got 2 LMSs. At Blackboard, we don't say to you, you must have this LMS. There's a certain amount of academic freedom. What we say is, we have 2 LMSs. You decide which one of fits your organization. We've got an open source LMS based on Moodle, and we have a proprietary system LMS which we've coded. The proprietary system is what UP uses, UJ uses, UFS uses. The open LMS is a Moodle-based product with many Moodle users around the world. Okay? So that's, you can see a differentiation today. We're going to show you first our proprietary system called Blackboard Ultra, and then we're going to have a break, refresh our minds, and then we're going to look at the open LMS. So you have 2 options with us. The reason we do that is because there's no such thing as one size fits all. It doesn't exist. What we say is, okay, partner with us. We will be the person that holds your hand and walks this journey with you. You choose what LMS is best for you. So we're going to guide you through some of these things. We're going to tell a story through the demo. And as we tell stories, we're going to come back to this and showcase to you which pieces are being answered. So this already answers the LTI, the LMS integration questions for you. I believe that's on page 4. So we do all of those integrations. This is pretty standard stuff any LMS will use. Right. So I think we now and this, before I go into the demo, I just wanted to showcase to you some of our partner ecosystem. So you will, who's familiar with VitalSource? VitalSource is, I know, the works of this institution. They're a content aggregator, right? They go to Pearson and Wiley and McGraw-Hill, and you as an educator get access to their bookshelf, right? We have a partnership with them. If you're in Blackboard system today, you simply go and grab the content that you need. It's that simple. We have partners with respondents. They have a lockdown browser. So if you are writing a digital exam and you want to lock down the browser so the student cannot cheat, they're a partner with us. If you're an institution that wants to use Khan Academy content, we're a partner of ours. We actually have more than 200 partners in our ecosystem. 200. And many of them are tools that you use today that are potentially not even integrated with your current LMS, but could be, and make your environment much simpler to use going forward. All right, so I'll come back to this later.
Okay,
So go ahead.
Okay. Right, everybody excited? Ready to go? Can everybody hear me? Okay. I won't use the microphone then because the microphone might be a bit overpowering. If you struggle to hear me at any point, please just shout up and I'll turn the mic on or I'll get a bit louder. So thanks for having us here today. It is a pleasure to present our Blackboard solutions to you. As Tamsin has said, we've actually got 2 LMSs that we're going to show you today. We are going to start with our proprietary one, the one that we code and build ourselves. What that allows us to do, it allows us to steer the product the way that we want to. Okay? So we work with thousands of educational institutions across the world. They will tell us what is important to them. We then have the capability to go and build that functionality into the system. Okay? So this is what I'm going to take you through now. So this is called Blackboard Learn. And actually this is called Blackboard Learn Ultra. So this is our newest rendition of the learning management system. This is actually the newest learning and management system on the market. However, it's underpinned by 20 years of Blackboard Learn. So it's got its roots in education, and we deal an awful lot with education institutions. Now, for the majority of this, we're going to be spending quite a lot of time as an academic, because I'm appreciating that there's plenty of academics in the room. I will show you some of the student experience, but it is extremely similar to the academic experience, and that's very deliberate. We don't want there to be a different experience for a member of staff or a student. So this is the login page of Blackboard Learn Ultra. We've made this look and feel the way that we want to. So looking at your grid here, we're on page 1 at the moment, looking at design and layout, and design and layout will actually feed through the entire presentation. But you can customise this page to look however you want. So we've gone with our institutional branding in the middle. Off to the left-hand side, we've got the login, and off to the right, because we know mobile is hugely important to students as well as academics, we've got the information on the home page about how to actually access the mobile version of Blackboard Learn. So I'm going to log in as a member of staff. And, just like so once I log in, I'm going to end on, I'm going to land on a page called the activity stream. So what the activity stream is actually doing is it's telling me as an academic what I need to focus my time on. Because you might be enrolled in lots of courses as a member of staff, as an academic. You might have lots of assignments that are due. You might have students sending you messages. You need to know when those things are happening. So the activity stream will aggregate all of that information and tell you what to focus on at this moment in time. So I can see that there's new submissions ready to mark on my Advanced World Geography course. I can see that some new content has been added to some of my courses. I can see that there's some institutional announcements going on, and this is all really important to me, so it's telling me what's going on the activity stream. From a student's point of view, it's going to tell me when deadlines are coming up, therefore I need to do something about those deadlines, i.e. I need to submit some work. So it's really important. If I was to send a student a message, the student's going to receive a notification on the activity stream to say you've got a new message that needs to be accessed. So it's a real clear, easy way to keep on top of your workload. By clicking the settings cog up here, you're actually able to customise what appears on the activity stream as well. So this can be completely personalised down to the things that are important to you, and this is down to every single user. You can also decide what gets emailed out to you, so we're flicking on to kind of the communications area now. You can decide what's emailed out to you, and you can decide what is pushed to your mobile application as well. So when do you want to receive a ping on your phone to say something's happening that's important in Blackboard? So you as a member of staff, you as a student are in complete control of what is going on and how the institution is communicating with you. Because let's face it, we all have our own personal choices of how we want to be communicated to. So you're just making those decisions.
Sorry, quick question. When you say push to mobile device, how is that push to mobile device?
So that relies on the student or the member of staff having the app on their phone.
Okay.
And we offer that experience, which I'm going to show you. Okay. Off to the left-hand side of the landing page, we call this the ultra-based navigation. The name is irrelevant, but what it is effectively doing here, it's giving me access to key parts of the system. Yes, of course.
Okay. Is that? Can you still hear me? Okay. Brilliant. Okay. Oh, is it not? Aha, that might be better. That better.
I'll turn that one off then, because I don't need that. Brilliant. So off to the left-hand side, we've got this ultra-based navigation panel, which is going to lead me to key parts of the system. So I could ask a question here. If I wanted to access my courses, how would I do that? I don't think I probably need to tell you, because there's a big button there that says courses on it. So it is really that intuitive and easy to use. And this is part of what we're trying to do at Blackboard. We understand that you need a system that is extremely powerful, but it's got to be easy to use. I'm sure as an academic you don't have time to sit in 6 hours worth of training in order to learn a new system. And there's new systems coming online all of the time. So the easier that these systems are to use, the better for you, because you're getting time back in your diary. So that's really important. So if I click on courses, I will be able to see all of the courses that I've got access to. Okay? If I click on my calendar, then I can look at the aggregation across all of my courses of my calendars. If I click on messages, I can look at the messages across all of my courses. If I go to the marks area, I can focus on a specific course in order to go and look at the marks for that course. So everything on the ultra-based navigation is designed to make your journey through the LMS as easy as possible, and it looks identical for students. Okay? So when you're talking to a student, you've not got to think, how does this look for my students? Because it looks the same as what you're seeing yourself, and that's very deliberate by design.
So that's on page 1.1, design and layout, where you can be looking at already, and even communication on the same page.
Yeah. I will just point out, because we've got on there small screens, so how does this look on a small screen? I'm going to show you some stuff on my mobile in a minute, but let's just show you what this looks like on a small screen. So I'm just going to reduce that down to the size of my mobile device. One thing that you will notice is that the environment has completely restructured now to suit the size of my window. So this is about the size of a mobile screen, okay? So you can imagine using that now on your mobile browser, okay? I've still got access to all of the menu. I can still go to the activity stream and see what's happening there. I can go out to my calendar and see what's happening on my calendar, and it's just resized to the browser. If I blow that back up, it's restructured itself to a desktop. So there are responsive LMSs. This is a fully responsive LMS. We actually design our product for a mobile device first and then scale up to a desktop, because that's actually an easier design methodology. Taking something that's on a browser and trying to make it fit onto a mobile device is actually really difficult. So we, with Learn Ultra, built this from a mobile point of view first. So that's really important to point out. And we'll go through more of that when we move into the student experience in a few minutes. So these are my courses. These are the courses that I've got access to. Straight away, you'll notice the images are very striking. As a member of staff, you can customise the images that appear here for your students. So you can add some personal identity to your courses. So if I wanted to edit the image that's on my Advanced World Geography course as a member of staff, I can do that. Brilliant. So I can give it some identity. I'm also able to favourite my most frequently accessed courses and pin them to the top of this page. So you'll notice these 7 courses have all got this purple star by them. That purple star is telling me that this isn't a favourite course of mine. It might be that I'm not accessing my culture and geography course as much as I want, so I'm going to unfavourite it. So it's just moved it down to the bottom of the screen. Everything's realigned. I've still got access to it, but it's just further down the page. Okay, so that makes good sense as well. So I'm going to dive into a course now, and let's start looking at a course experience. So if I go into my Advanced World Geography course, this is now looking at the course content area, and this is where the primary focus of the screen is, because we know course content is critical for both yourselves and, more importantly, for your students. The layout of this has been very carefully considered, so you'll notice that it's pretty slick. We don't overclutter the screen with too much information, because again, we're trying to make the system powerful but easy to use. So by keeping the screen as simple as we can, we're trying to make it more usable. So I'm going to dive straight into some content. I will explain more of this interface as we go through. The majority of my time this morning I'm going to spend in my Rising Oceans folder. So I'm just going to pop that open, and we can see all of the content that exists as part of my Rising Oceans folder. So in here, I've got some discussion forums, I've got some assignments, I've got a document here, I've got a Word document as well. So I have got a range of content here. But as an academic, one of the key things that I'll want to do is add content onto the LMS. Okay? How do I do that? There you go. So to add content onto Blackboard Learn Ultra is simply drag and drop. Now if I click the upload button, I can browse for the content and go onto network drives and do what I need to. But if you've got really quick, easy access to a piece of content, you can just drag it on to the LMS, which is the experience that we're all very familiar with now. Drag and drop is something that's built into us all, so the LMS absolutely supports that workflow. Now, as a standard that is hidden to my students, I can just simply make it visible to my students within a couple of minutes. So there's nothing there that is designed to catch you out. You can easily make content available to students. Now, the LMS is much more powerful than just adding a PowerPoint or a Word document, but that is a key workflow that none of us can get away from. We do need to be doing those things.
Will that drag and drop work on Linux, Mac, Windows?
Yeah,
my
it will
iPad?
work in all of our supported browsers, so as long as you're using one of our supported browsers, and that is on page 4 of the rubric.
So if it's supported operating systems, I mean, drag and drop doesn't just depend on the browser, it depends on the operating system.
It does depend on the operating system, so that's all published on our support pages, and we keep that up to date as we release.
Okay, so
our
just,
updates.
do you support Linux?
Yes, we do, yes.
Thank you.
What version of Linux? I'd have to dive onto the help pages because we do develop the system, but yes, it supports Linux, it supports Windows, and it supports Mac, which are probably the main 3 that we would see typically. And Android on mobile devices, iOS on mobile devices as well. So, but it's all documented. So, good question.
And while you're looking, we're going through content right now, right? So how does it upload content, create content, author content? There's one of them is on page 1, content organization.
Correct. And I'm going to go through some more of that right now. So drag and drop is there, but there's so much more that you can do with the LMS. So I'm just going to take you through these 6 options at a very high level because we haven't got time to go through everything in an awful lot of detail, but I want to show you as an academic what power you have in order to create a course. So if I want to create an assignment, a test, if I want to create a folder, a learning module, some sequence learning, if I want to add a SCORM package, if I want to create a discussion forum, that all exists under the Create menu. And I'm going to click on that just to show you what I'm talking about. So when I click on Create, I get this side menu pop out, and it allows me to go and build some of those things that I've just spoken about. Okay? So really easy to go and create content on the VLE, and we're going to go dive into those in just a moment. What I'm also able to do is if I click on the plus again, I'm able to copy content. So you will have access to many, many courses. You might think, well, hold on a minute, I've got some content in this course over here, which is going to really benefit me in this course over here, okay? So if I click copy content, I can just go and grab that and pull it into this course. So I haven't got to go and find the source files, I haven't got to go and recreate the assignment, I can just go and grab it and pull it into here. So I can move content across my courses really easily. We spoke about upload, so we can drag and drop, or you can click the upload button and browse for the files that you need to. The content market is really powerful, and this shows the power of the ecosystem that Tamsin was talking about a few minutes ago. So if you integrate with different tools that are outside of the LMS, this is where you bring them all together. So if you're using Pearson content, you can integrate with Pearson directly from the LMS. If you're using Vital Source Bookshelf, which I believe you are as an institution, you can go and grab your bookshelf content straight from here. If you're using tools such as Turnitin, then you can apply a Turnitin assignment directly onto the LMS from here. So any tool that has those open capabilities, we can plug into the LMS using standards. Okay, so that is where we can do that real-time partner integration. If I click on the plus again, I'll just scroll down. There we go. We can integrate with cloud storage. So if you're using Dropbox, if you're using Microsoft OneDrive, if you're using Google, if you're using these cloud services that are really important to students and staff's education experiences, you can just go and grab files from those places and drop them onto the LMS. So it doesn't matter whether you're a student completing an assignment or whether you're a member of staff creating content, you can do those things.
Oh, hi. Can I ask a question on that? So I think because you'll be using the cloud, if the students have low connections, so for example, students in the township or in the rural areas, I see here you've got offline version. Is it possible for students to go to an area, download everything they need for the night, and then come back, or not really? Or is low connection an issue with Blackboard?
100% you're right. So a student can go and download the content that they need for that night. They can go home, they can study that content offline, and then when they come back online, things will update. So it works exactly as you would expect it to work. And I'm going to try and show you some of that when I move on to the mobile device in a few minutes. Okay? Good question. And finally, we've got the content collection. So the content collection underpins what happens in Blackboard. So when you upload a file, it will automatically get added to the content collection. But you can also use the content collection for lots of other things. So if you want to create an area for students to share files, then you can do that using the content collection. If you want to set up an area for academic research and give particular academics access to that research, or in fact bring students into that academic research, you can do that using the content collection. So there's a very powerful repository of file storage that sits underneath Blackboard Learn Ultra that you can tap into both as a student and as an academic to benefit whatever work you're doing, whether it's research, whether it's teaching and learning at that moment in time. So what I'm going to do is we're going to create and we're going to spend a few minutes looking at an assignment. Let me just pop open a new assignment so that we can see what's going on, and we'll create an assignment. I'm assuming you use assignments frequently to test students' understanding, ability, and everything else. Yep, great. So the user interface that we use for creating assignments is quite easy to understand, and we've split it into 3 sections. So across the top, which is where my focus is at the moment, I give the assignment a name. Okay? You'll also notice that I'm getting inline help to point me in the right direction. So even if I'm not sure what to do here, Blackboard Learn Ultra will keep me true and keep me honest and give me some in-context support. So I would just give this assignment a name of assignment and type that into the box, and that's the name that I want to give to my assignment. Off to the right-hand side, I've got my assignment settings. So we're going to spend a few minutes now looking at the different settings that are available to me as an academic as I start to actually work on building out this assignment. So to start with, I can set the assignment due date. That's probably quite an important one, probably one we're all quite familiar with. Okay, so I can simply set an assignment due date. I've got options here around allowing a class conversation, randomised questions and randomised answers. Now, you might think, well, I'm setting up an assignment here. Why am I interested in randomising questions and randomising answers? What's a class conversation? I'm going to come back to those points in just a few minutes, okay? If this needs to be a physical submission from a student, we're just identifying that this will be collect submissions offline because the student's going to produce a piece of work and physically hand it to you. It's not going to be an online submission, so we've got that option there as well. We have got options about how you want this assignment to be called, because you might not always want to call it an assignment. You might want to call it homework. You might want to call it a test. You might want to call it an exam. So you can get the context right for this particular piece of work so the student doesn't go down the wrong avenue. How many attempts do I want the student to have? And at the bottom we've got unlimited attempts, because you might want the student to keep on polishing that piece of work continually. So you might want to make unlimited attempts. How do you want to mark this? Do you want to mark using a letter? Are you going to grade giving points or a percentage? For this we'll just use a percentage. And then just underneath here we've got some quite nice advanced features. So I could make this an anonymous submission. So I don't want to know who the students are while I'm going through my marking processes, so that I'm actually not giving any favour to a student, because I don't know who I'm marking at that moment in time. The great thing about ticking that box is the student gets a message to say this is an anonymous submission, do not put your name on it. So again, it works exactly as you would expect it to. The student's getting informed at their end that you're not going to know who they are. With regards to things like parallel marking, you could have multiple people come and mark this assignment, and you can have reconcilers actually decide the final grade. So you can have 3 people marking one student's piece of work, and then the reconciler will decide the final grade based on those 3 markers' work. Okay? And we're just about to introduce peer and self-assessment here as well. So that's going to work in a similar way. You can say I want the student to self-assess this piece of work, or I want other students to look at other students' work, and let's give them a rubric to work against as part of that process. I'm going to cover rubrics in a second.
Okay, so let's say, for example, I've got various tutorial groups, and I want to say I have 20 students in a particular tutorial group, and I only want one tutor to be able to mark those 20 students, but I've got 1,000 students. How would I go about the process of setting up those marking positions?
So I'll show you the group element in just a second, which will then help with your workflow when you're setting up these kind of things. So large group numbers, great question as well, because obviously Blackboard will support large group numbers. I'll show you how easy it is to create those groups as we work down here. I've got the option here about a time limit. So we've always thought about releasing an assignment on this date and having a deadline date here. How about I was to say to a student, at the point you access this assessment, you've got 60 minutes to complete it. How about you say you've got 3 days to complete it? So I don't mind when you go into it, but when you do go into it, you've got a set amount of time in order to actually make a submission. So that will give the students some power back to them about when they want to actually start completing this assessment. So it's just thinking about things just slightly differently. I've mentioned rubrics, and I know rubrics is absolutely one of the things here. I think it's on page 2. So I want to show you what we do around rubrics. So in Learn, what you can do is you can create a rubric on the fly. So I can simply click Create a New Rubric, and I would have the power to set up a rubric relevant to this assignment. Okay? But I've also got the option to reuse rubrics that I've set up in the past. So we're thinking of your time here. If you've used a rubric successfully in the past, I want to apply that rubric across multiple assessments. So I can do that. So I can view a particular rubric. So I can just click on the View button here. I can take a look at the quality of that rubric to see whether it's a good fit. So I can see here that I've got spelling, presentation, use of images, factual accuracy down the left-hand side, and I've got a score against excellent, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and poor. And I can build this rubric out. For the purposes of time today, I'm just going to select that rubric just by clicking the plus, and I can now see that this assessment will be marked using that rubric. Okay, so the students will see that rubric when they go into the assessment. Competency-based education is one that you might be familiar with. So this is generally where you've got a set of standards that the student needs to prove that they meet. Okay? You can upload those standards into Blackboard Learn and align this assignment with some of those standards. So as the student starts to complete this assessment, they will meet standard 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So as you're going into some of the medical industries, I know that standards and competency-based education is critical. So Blackboard Learn supports that workflow. It won't just be medical, that's just the example I've used. Now the groups question I can now answer. So I can assign this assignment to groups of students. So instead of working as an individual, I could say, these are my team members, and I want to bring these team members in to work on this assignment submission together. So I'll just take you through how this works. So these are the students that I've got in this course. I've only got 16 on here, but the principles are the same whether you've got 16 or whether you've got 500. Okay? Now I can manually build out the groups by clicking the plus button, and I can create these groups. Okay? Now, if you've got 500 students, you can imagine how long that would take to actually assign students into these groups. So what I'm able to do, I'm able to use some of the power of Blackboard in order to do this for me. So I can randomly assign all of my students to groups. It's done. Okay? I've got two groups, and that's going to consist of 8 students per group. Maybe I want smaller groups, because I want more groups, but I want smaller numbers within the groups. So let's have 4 groups. Students are automatically assigned to those groups. This is the power of Blackboard working to save you some time, okay? The other thing that you might want to do is you might want to have students self-enroll themselves onto particular groups. So I can set up self-enrollments. I can say when the enrollment opens, so they can choose when they want to enroll onto that group. They've got until a set date to actually assign themselves and how many users are in each group, okay? And then that information will go to the student. They can self-enroll themselves onto particular groups. Or, similar to the rubric, I might have used successful groupings in the past, and I might just want to reuse those groupings. So I can say, that particular grouping worked really well for me, so I'm going to use those groupings, and my students have fallen into those groupings that I've used previously. Okay, so you've got those options to try and make it really easy.
This is my current situation. I have 1,400 students,
Yep.
and they have tutorial groups. All these students take the courses on different days.
Okay.
So I want to be able to take my spreadsheet and assign groups offline and upload them. Can I do that? Doesn't seem to have that option.
You can't do it in the user interface, but we can do that in a different way. So we'll use our REST APIs to do that. So you'll be able to upload your spreadsheet into a REST API, which will then organise the
Sorry,
things for you.
what's a REST API?
So it's one of the.
It doesn't sound easy.
So when Tamsin was talking earlier, we have this open architecture. We have a set of published APIs.
Okay, so what you're saying is you don't have the functionality that would have to be implemented. I mean, you have the framework to do that.
We have the framework in the back
end
of the
that.
system.
You don't have that built-in functionality.
Yeah, it's not available in the user interface at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
We will find out if it's coming, okay, into the user interface, or at the moment we'll use the REST API to actually do that.
Yeah, it's quite easy to do actually, but it's the core of the Blackboard system is built for the 80% of the use cases of the institution, and if there's a 20% that is unique and difficult or different, those can also be done. We just find ways to do them using the APIs.
Okay, so I can create groups here, and I can assign those students into those groups as needed. Okay, so I'm just going to close that down. Going back to my assignment settings, one of the great things about Blackboard is we've got this tool called Safeassign. This is an originality checking tool. Effectively, it's making sure your students aren't plagiarising work. So you can just go into these options and you can check the student's submission to see if they've been plagiarised. So we've got the second biggest database in the world for checking originality of content, okay? And this is bundled as part of your licence. There's no additional fee for this product. It is bundled as part of what you get. So we can check the student submissions for plagiarism and originality. What happens in the grading workflow is you get a report that you can access, and it will tell you where the system thinks it's been plagiarised from. You can check that out yourself and see whether you agree. So you've got full visibility of what that plagiarism looks like. And as mentioned, as part of our partner ecosystem, we've got a lockdown browser option here that's delivered by responders. So as we work more with our partners, we're able to integrate them into the platform in different ways. So if you're doing a high-stakes digital examination, you can employ something like a lockdown browser, so the student can't cheat, open up a new tab and go Googling the answer. Okay, so that's what Responders Lockdown Browser does. So you can set those options against the assignment as well. So even though I've took you through those quite slowly and carefully, I think it's fairly self-explanatory about what those options are. The last thing that I need to do is actually tell the students what to do, because that's all the settings, but I haven't told them what to do. So how would I do that? So in this third space, and I said there were 3 spaces, this is the last space, I can actually go and add content onto this assessment. So I can go and add text. And I can type and tell the students what to do. I could link out to other sources of information. I can insert images. I can insert videos here. I can go out to my cloud storage and go grab something from OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Drive. I can insert an LTI tool here, so that's a third-party tool. I can go and insert a YouTube video if I wanted to. So the options here for me to make this rich, so that I can give the student as much information on the introduction to this assessment as possible, the options are pretty endless.
Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
I saw a formula editor there. What kind of formula editors have you got?
So let me open it up. So if I click on the function option there, we use the virus editor. So it's a very industry standard editor. There it is. So I can do math functions in here. I can do scientific functions in here. And I can't remember where it is off the top of my head, but we have a full table of elements in here as well. I really can't remember off the top of my head where it is.
Does your platform support LaTeX?
Yes, this is part of the LaTeX editor. And in fact, we're going to be making, in the next 12 months, we're going to be making even more additions to this, so that on a tablet you can use a pen, you can draw the formula, and it will turn it automatically into a computed formula. So we've got some really exciting things on the roadmap. So this is really strong at the moment. We're going to add more functionality onto it in the next 12 months. Great question.
Will that be true for the students submitting assignments?
Correct. It will be both for the academic and the student experience, yeah, 100%. So students can access this as well. So if you want them to respond to a question with a scientific formula, they can use this. So this isn't exclusive to staff at all. So this editor is really strong, and that is part of the scoring as well. I think it's around content authoring, yeah, that's the one.
On page 1.
Yeah, page 1.
Oh, so sorry, can I ask a question related to the same question? If, let's say, you want to use a separate application, so a software application, let's say R, because you want to test the student's application of statistics, is it possible, because you're talking about integration earlier on, to use that to, not really to test the application?
So what you can do, as long as that application has some way of us to hook into it, then yes, you absolutely can. So if they integrate through APIs, if they integrate through LTI, then we can absolutely hook into that. Worst case thing that we can do is just put a link into that third-party product and send the students out to it as part of this assessment. So we can do that, but generally, educational providers of technology will integrate in an LTI way or an API way. And that is what you're seeing in this system. So it comes down to what functionality that other vendor makes available to us.
So I think the problem is some of our senior students, we're preparing them to be professionals or ready to be ready pass professional exams.
Yep.
So the software might be used by professionals. So that's a kind of a unique case in our school.
Yeah, so I'm just not familiar with that piece of software. So like if you were to say Turnitin, Respondus, VitalSource, even video providers such as Nocto, Kaltura, I could answer all of those because I've got the knowledge in my head to say, yes, we integrate with them, this is how we do it. I'm just not familiar with the software provider you've just mentioned. So we could go away and find out and come back to you about that, that's no problem. So we'll speak after, if that's okay, so I can make sure I've got the company details and we'll contact them and see whether, or you can ask the question of them directly. Oh, hello.
Could you send me the name of the applications, and then I'll back channel to them and
Perfect.
get specific answers for you.
That's a great idea, actually. Let's funnel everything through a central page. Good. Another question? Yeah.
My question is, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
My question is around the content organization,
Yes.
the ordering of it. I can see that you can, group and have subgroups of students, and that's great. I'm finding that most LMSs don't have the ability to order the allocated groups for content, for closed group discussions,
Yeah.
especially when you're having large numbers.
Yeah.
So you might end up with, I can't use the word duplication in this context, because if it's an assessment, you cannot duplicate
Yeah.
the actual placeholder. But do your LMS have the ability to create the ordering in a duplicated way? Because it becomes quite a humongous task from a design perspective to set up each group. If you have 10 groups or 20 groups, the bigger your class is.
Of course.
So how do you bypass that?
I'd love to show you. Can you just give me 2 or 3 minutes? I'm going to show you.
Will you get to that? Will you
I'm
cover
going to
that?
show you, yeah. Because I think there's a really nice way to do it, and I'd like to know whether it meets your use case. And we've got some more stuff coming on the roadmap to help with exactly that as well. So there's a bit of stuff here now that I think can, and I think there's some really cool stuff coming that I think will help you further. So
Okay.
I'll come back to you in just a few minutes when we move on to groups. I'm going to keep this moving because time is obviously against us a little bit. As mentioned earlier, I can bring in assignment briefs from cloud storage, Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive. And then there's an interesting proposition here as well, and I'm just going to explain this to you. I've got the option here of using question types, but I'm building an assignment. So that could be confusing. But actually, why is it that we've always put tests over here and assignments over here? Why can't I have one place where I can test the students' knowledge using questions and then have them make a submission in the same place to check their critical thinking skills? Okay? So you can use the tools independently, so you can still have a test over here, you can still have an assignment over here, or you can realign your workflow so that you have things in a logical place for the student. Okay? So we're giving you some thought about how you might want to structure assessments moving forward with the capabilities of using tests and assignments at exactly the same time. And I think that's a really interesting use case, and one that we're seeing increasingly used within our LMSs. So it's quite good. Now, as default, that's hidden from my student. I can make that visible to my students in just a click. I can also do this piece around conditional release. So I can say, I've set up this assessment, but I don't want my students to see it until a set date. or they've got to complete something else first before they see this assessment, okay? That way you can structure learning pathways through your content. So you could say, I've got a student underperforming in this quiz, so I need to release more material to them because of their underperformance to support them more. I could have a student that completes that quiz very well, and I want to move them on to different elements of the course quicker. So I can actually structure these learning pathways through the conditional availability of content. So that's a really strong feature. Going back to that question just a few minutes ago, one of the things that we're going to add into that is releasing contents to groups based on the groups that they're in. So you could say, I want this group to have access on this date, I want this group to have access on this date, or I want groups to have access based on something else that that group has done. So that's part of the roadmap. The one thing that I did talk to you about, let's just make that visible. There we go. One thing that I did want to talk to you about is how you can set group spaces so that people can work together as a group of students. So I've got a different assignment just below the one where we've just set up that assignment there. I've got another one just here, and it's called Rising Oceans Group Assignment. Okay, so there are groups in this assessment exactly set up how I explained just a few minutes ago. And against this assessment, I ticked the class conversation box. Okay, so in the settings, I ticked the class conversation box. What's a class conversation? Okay, so why have we always thought of tests over here? Why have we always thought of assessments over here? Why have we always thought about group activities and discussion boards over here? Okay, so by ticking the class conversation box, in the top right-hand corner, I've got this small icon, and as a member of staff or as a student, I can click on that. And what is happening here is my students are having a conversation in line with this assessment, about this assessment. So I can see all of the interactions that my students are having with each other, and this is the entire class. So this could be the 1,500 students all talking together about what's going on in this assessment. However, you surely want to create some group spaces based on the groups that I've set up against this assignment so they can have more focused conversations. Still can't. Okay.
So we're just giving, there's some people online who are listening. We just want to make sure that they can hear us. Just be polite and not rude.
So I'm going to carry on because I'm conscious of time, so apologies for that interruption. So what's happened here is we've now actually got conversations structured around particular groups. So I've got an Atlantic Ocean group in this particular assessment and a Pacific Ocean group. So this is an area where students can be talking about what's going on, but more importantly, they can be sharing files with each other, they can be sharing video content with each other, they can be using maths formulas and working on those maths formulas as part of the communication here. So we make tools available so that the students can be doing all of this in line, and the students and the staff can see who's contributing. So just off to the right hand side, I can see who's part of this group and who's actually making the most contributions in this group as well. To take this a step further, and one of the points on here is around collaboration, which is on page 2. This group has access to their own dedicated web conferencing room. So if they want to turn this into, okay, so I can share files in this conversation, I can type some text, I can add some maths formulas, how about we launch into our web conferencing tool so that we can use audio, video, we can screen share, we can capture this content and actually make a submission using the captured content that we've created here. So you can use the power of Blackboard Collaborate in order to do these things. So Blackboard Collaborate allows us to screen share, it allows us to share files, it allows us to do whiteboarding, so we can do some brainstorming. That's a great use case of whiteboarding. You might ask students to come to the front of a class in a physical environment and write on the whiteboard. You can do that online too by using the whiteboard option. You can ask students questions. You can break out into groups and actually have this group working in subgroups. So the power of what you can do with the group tools is pretty spectacular today, and we're planning to build out more functionality against this as time moves forward. So I hope that now thoroughly answers your
So
question.
just to clarify, you are saying your system allow you to have the course assessment, in this instance the assignment, and you differentiate between your discussions and your assignments. So the best way around that would be is to keep it an open group and then use your little icon for closed group discussions, if I understand you correctly.
And don't get me wrong, you can still do separate graded discussions. So if thought about tests, assignments, discussion, you can do all of those in complete separation. You can bring them all together. It's okay. We're giving you the options to best suit your use case and your students. So going back into here, I want to go and spend a little bit of time on the mobile experience because I'm conscious I've spent an awful lot of time on the desktop experience. So I'm very briefly going to just dive into here, and let's go into, there we go. So you're now looking at my mobile phone, and just to prove it, there is my mobile phone. I'm now controlling the screen from my mobile phone, okay? I'm using Safari to do this, so I'm not going to be able to answer all the questions about the browsers, but our browsers are all listed on our help pages, so I'm using Safari just to call out what I'm using. I can log in as a student here, and I think I'm going to be logged in as a student called Chloe, so you'll just have to imagine me as Chloe for a few minutes. I'm going to be using 3G for this, so there might be just a slight delay in some of the screen loads, but it's just because I'm on 3G. So as a student, I've landed into the environment using my mobile device, and I've landed on the activity stream where a lot of stuff is glowing red because I'm running behind with quite a lot of my assignment submissions. So like I said, the activity stream is designed to keep you on track with the work that you do. This is what it's doing for a student. It's telling me that I've got a lot of work that's overdue. So as a student, I can click on any one of those, access those assessments, and start making progress towards those assessments. I'm also able to access all of the menu options that we looked at. So I can go into my courses, I can see the courses that I've got access to. Again, just take a few moments to load. And I can scroll through those courses. You can see that the mobile interface is quite delightful to use. With the images, it makes it really pleasant. So I use an analogy here, and I look across to my Amazon colleague. Why do I spend too much money on Amazon? Because Amazon make it really easy for me to spend my money, okay? And it's the same with Blackboard Learn. Why would students and staff want to engage with Blackboard? Because we're trying to make it as easy as we possibly can for you to engage with the platform. So the same applies, okay? So as a student, I might want to go into my Introduction to Advertising course. So if I click on that, it will open up. And here is my Introduction to Advertising course. So this is a different course. We actually haven't dived into this course. But here is my Introduction to Advertising course. I can scroll through that and go through what I need to. I can get back to my courses menu, and I can jump back into my Advanced World Geography course. So navigation around the system, really, really easy and slick to use. So I want to go into my Rising Oceans folder because this is the area that we've been focusing on this morning. We can see my assignment that I set up, which was called Name of Assignment. That is there because we've just added that as an academic, so now my students can see that. I could go in and look at my Rising Oceans individual assignment because I might want to make a submission. So if I click on Rising Oceans individual assignment, as a student, I can see all of the assignment options that are applicable to me through this assignment. I can see that I've got a rubric on here, and as a student, I can go and see how this is actually going to be graded. So I can open up all of the grading criteria. I can see where I've got to apply my time to hopefully get the most marks. Because that, as a student, is what I'm always trying to achieve. I want to do the best that I possibly can in my assessments. So I can see the grading rubric really easily. I can view the assignment, and after I've viewed the assignment, I can add content in order to make a submission. Now if I click on add content, I've got full use of the text box editor that we saw a few minutes ago as a student. And that also allows me to do the maths formulas, the scientific formulas. It allows me to go and insert things from my cloud storage as a student. It allows me to go and grab a video from YouTube and insert that as part of my assignment submission. So I can do all of those great things. The one here that I like the most is cloud storage. A student could save their work logically on a cloud storage device and they never lose it. So making a submission directly from OneDrive or Dropbox makes an awful lot of sense. I'm going to come out of this, just conscious of time. So I'm going to come out of the responsive element of this, and I'm going to dive into the mobile application because there's been multiple thoughts today, and it's on your scoring sheet around the mobile application. So we've got two mobile applications at Blackboard. We've got one that's focused on the student experience. We've got one that's focused on the academic experience. Okay, they're different because an academic wants to be able to grade, a student wants to be able to view content and things like that. So they are different experiences. So we've got the two applications. I'm going to be focusing on the student experience because we want to show you some offline capabilities because we know that this is important. So I'm going to dive into my courses and I'm going to go into my Introduction to Advertising course and I'm going to look at my course content. Okay. Now in the top right hand corner you'll notice I've got the down arrow within that small box. Okay. If I click on that, as a student I'm given the option to download all of my course content for offline use. Okay. So while I'm here at the university and I've got great Wi-Fi, I can download that content. When I go back home and I know that my Wi-Fi is poor, then I can still access and look at all of my course material. Okay. So being in a weak Wi-Fi area or not having 3 or 4G isn't a barrier to education, and that's really, really important. It's important wherever you are in the globe. Even in London, being on the tube, you've got no Wi-Fi. So the student being able to access offline content on the mobile device is critical to every institution that I speak to. So really important there. I could go into my Advanced World Geography course, which is what we've been focusing on this morning. In my Rising Oceans folder, we will see the content here that we've been doing. I can see a quiz down here. So I've got a quiz on oceans. I've got 5 attempts left. So if I dive into my quiz on oceans, I can now take that quiz on my mobile device. So I can just continue with my attempt, and I can go through and complete this quiz on the fly. I could also submit that assignment that we spoke about just a few minutes ago on my mobile device using the app as well. So the mobile capabilities of Blackboard are strong, and we unlike other vendors are focused on the responsive element within a browser, and we've also got the applications to support it. So we're giving students and staff choice, which is quite important. We're not pushing you down a responsive only route, or we're not pushing you down an application only route. We're giving you the options that best works for you as an academic or as a student. Okay.
Sorry, so the quiz is also available offline?
So you can complete the quiz offline and make a submission. The challenge there is it's when it resyncs, because if the deadline has passed, then obviously it's going to struggle to resync. So there are some conditions around it being offline. Because the student's offline for 3 weeks, the likelihood is the due date will pass. So there's some common sense and logic that needs to just be applied to that as well. So
you do it offline and then will it sync or do that?
It will sync back as soon as you're back on Wi-Fi. And equally, if any content's been updated on the course by the academic, then the student will get a refreshed version of that when they're in the app. Okay. The other thing that the student can do, just to point out the power of the offline content, you might be short on space on your mobile device. I know that with the amount of photos I take, I can really run short on space. So if I wanted to delete all of the offline content off my device, I can do it here. I can set the settings for auto-syncing, and I can say I only want this to work on Wi-Fi. So I don't want my data to be sucked up if I'm on 3G, because I can actually download my content while I'm on Wi-Fi. So we really have tried to think through the use cases here to support the student.
So in terms of the assessments, students can complete assessments on their mobile device.
Yes.
If for some reason the internet or there are no data or they lost connection for some reason, well, once the student commits again with assessment, will it just save the previous responses already?
So it will save it in the offline mode, and when it resyncs, it will submit it as late. So the student probably wants to explain to the academic why it was late, so that they don't get downgraded. But you could say, well, this is where the academic freedom comes in a little bit. Do you appreciate the fact that the student lost Wi-Fi at that moment in time? Or do you say, well, you should have been more prepared, to submit it when Wi-Fi was available, and you shouldn't have left it till the last minute. Now, it's not for Blackboard to dictate to you how you manage that. That's down to you as an academic to give the student flexibility on what you're willing to accept as late. If it's an hour late, and because they're having Wi-Fi problems, you might want to give some academic, like, I think it depends where they actually fell out of the situation. So if they've entered and started making a submission, it will save it. But if they haven't actually started the attempt, then there's nothing to save. So
in the middle of an assessment, for example,
say that again, sorry.
in the middle of an assessment.
So it will save locally onto their device where they're at. When it gets submitted and auto-sync back, I'm not sure whether it will count the time and the date where they stop the assessment, or whether it's when it syncs back. I'm not sure.
But if let's say, for example, load shedding, because you were the assessment, so when they log back in, would it have saved their response up until?
Yes, it would. Yes. Yes, it would. It would save it locally on the device. Yes. Okay. Brilliant. I'm going to. Oh, another question.
In relation to that, if you're doing assessments on the device, is your material encrypted on the device or not?
That's a technical question that I think we just need to clarify for you. I'm not sure. I'd like to think that it is, but I don't want to say that and not be right. That's more technical, so we'll go away and we'll ask the question and come back to it. One of the things that we do is that, and one of the recent releases that we've released, I don't know if you've used a banking app, and it will, I don't know whether you've seen the, let me see if I can show you. You're going to see my face, I'm sorry. Oh, no, you won't. Here we go. So, if I go into my applications here, so I can see all of the applications that I've opened this morning. So I've got WhatsApp, I've got my camera, I've got Safari, I've got Blackboard. You'll notice that Blackboard isn't showing me the content when I'm in that view. It only shows me the content of what's in Blackboard when I actually click on the application. That's what banking apps do. So if I was to scroll up so that I can scroll through my applications, it's not disclosing what I've got on screen at that moment in time. So we have thought the security of it through very carefully, but I would like to come back to you on whether the actual content's encrypted on the device, because I don't know yet. Right, okay. Another question?
I just want to know a little bit more. I know you touched on the lessons. Say you've got 4 different modules.
Yep.
And you want to create the fifth one by chopping the other ones. Can you copy the entire lesson to the new module without actually having to drop some of the attachments, especially if the lessons are instructive rather than just the content that you deposit?
Yeah, so you would use the copy content feature to do that. So when you click on the plus here, you would use the copy content feature. You would select the content that you want to pull over, click submit, and it will just drop onto here. So if you've got multiple modules, you can copy that content across multiple courses. So yes, that absolutely works the way you would think it would work. I hope you don't mind me referring to the fact that I'm saying it works the way you expect it to work, but that is part of the design methodology that we have at Blackboard. We want it to work the way that you would expect it to work, and that's really important because that makes training and delivery much easier. Okay, so I'm going to flick back onto the desktop experience, and I'm going to show you a discussion forum. So at the top here, we've got personal thoughts of rising oceans. This is a discussion, a separate discussion, not a conversation, a separate discussion where my students have been working together. Now, one of the pieces of feedback that we've received is when you've got massive discussions, they're actually really difficult to grade because you've got lots of contributors, lots of things going on. A discussion board can become quite chaotic in the way that it's organised because you've got replies, responses, threads and all of this. So at Blackboard we thought about the way that you might want to grade a discussion board, and I'm going to use the grading around a discussion board to show you grading, which is part of your criteria. So I can go through to the marks and participation, so I'm back in as an academic now, and here is Chloe, and I want to see what Chloe's been doing in my discussion forum, okay? So just by clicking Chloe's name, it's going to show me all of Chloe's contributions in this particular discussion forum. So I can see off to the left-hand side all of Chloe's contributions. We can use rich text here, we can use videos, we can use cloud storage documents, we can use all of that great stuff that we've gone through. And this is what Chloe's been talking about, and I can see the replies that people have been making to Chloe's post. So how interactive has Chloe been on this discussion forum? Now, to help you with your grading, off to the right-hand side, we've got the average word count compared to the class average. We've got the number of replies compared to the class average. We've got the number of responses compared to the class average. So we're trying to bring a little bit of order about the quantity and the amount of engagement that Chloe's had with this particular discussion forum. Now just bear with me here, because this might blow your mind a little bit, and I'm not intending to blow your minds today, but we are pushing the boundaries to try and help you with your grading workflows. Some academics love this, some academics don't like it at all, and you can switch this off. So I'm just setting the scene for you. But we're actually able to assess this particular discussion forum. Look at the types of word variations that this student has been using. Look at the critical thinking level that this student has been applying compared to the class average. We're applying some machine learning over the top of this. We're looking at the number of content words compared to the number of functional words. Okay. So if there's a lot of if there's a lot of functional words there, it might not be a very useful post. Whereas if they're using a lot of content words, the content might be richer. And then we can look at the number of substantive posts compared to the class average, the sentence complexity, and so on and so forth. So we hope that this will allow you to get a handle on what this student has been doing in order to make a quicker judgment towards a grade. Now, as I said, you can turn this off, so you can hide the discussion forum analysis, so you can just turn it off if you don't want to look at it. But then when I actually do go to make some comments on this, I get this pop-out window, and I can actually provide some feedback to the student. So if I edit this feedback, I've got the full use, so I can add some text into here. I could put a math formula in here, I could put a YouTube video, it's all the same stuff we've been talking about. But because this is now a grading workflow, I can insert a video recording. So how about I want to give the students some video feedback and some audio feedback. So I can basically click on Insert Edit Recording, and I get this lovely window pop up. It's just going to take a second to load. And then I can effectively give the students some more substantive feedback. So I can turn my camera on. Oh dear, I'm sorry. I get a countdown into this, and there's an academic who can say, "Hi Chloe, you've done a really good attempt at that. I really like some of your critical thinking that you layered through that discussion. Good job, move on to the next assessment."
That's also quite useful for research. When you've got research students and giving them feedback, we find that research students appreciate verbal feedback quite a lot.
Hello.
Hi, can I just ask you, I'm not sure if I missed the initiation of that discussion, but is the academic also able to influence the judgment tools that you have? So you said you could turn it on or off, but can you change the questions of what it's looking for?
At the moment, no, we can't. We can't do that on an institutional level. We're actually using published machine learning. So we haven't come up with a methodology behind it. We're using published machine learning at drawing down that information. So it's based on some research that somebody else has done. So all of that is published on our help pages about what we link back to in order to do that. So, because Blackboard shouldn't be dictating to you what sentence complexity look like. We should be using some industry standards to use that. So that is what we're doing. So I don't have all of the detail on that, but it is published on our help pages, and I'll share the help pages in a minute. So I hope that helps you with grading and feedback. The one thing I can't show you here is Safeassign. I've got your question, I'll come back to you in just a second. So in an assessment, I would have the option of looking at the plagiarism report in order to see what's been plagiarised, if anything. I'm also able to do annotations on the student's work itself, so I can actually go in and I can make comments on the student work, I can strike through, I can highlight, I can do all sorts of things. Again, I can't show you everything today because we're really up against it for time, but I just want to give you the reassurance that all of those good marking tools are there in an assessment. Going back to that question that came in.
Within this interface, within discussion forum, are you able to see which students have not been participating and to give them feedback or to encourage them to comment from students?
Yeah, absolutely. So down the right-hand side of the discussion, I can see who the key contributors are. I can go in and see who hasn't been contributing. So I've got an idea here about who hasn't been contributing. We've got another way of showing some of these statistics as well, and I'm glad you brought it up. I'm going to flick into a different environment to show you this. And I'm going to go into my advanced world geography course just here. And if I go into, sorry, pause, it's not that one. Now to go from it's not that one. It's one, where is it? There it is. So if I go into my computer sciences course here, what we try to do, if I say to you, how would you normally look at how a student's doing? A lot of people tell me they'll go into the grade centre, they'll look across that student's row in the grade centre, and they'll look at their marks and try and make some mental idea of how that student's actually performing. So you paint a picture in your head about that student's performance, okay? We'll try and take it a step further at Blackboard. So I've got some assessments here. You can apply this logic against a discussion forum. I've got it set up with this demo against an assessment. So I'm actually able to go into my week 1 assessment here and view my student activity, okay? This is quite smart. I really like this from an academic point of view to see how students are participating in the things that I'm telling them to participate in. So the first thing that I can do is I can see how many of my students haven't even opened my assessment. That's quite important, because if I know they haven't opened it, I know they've done no work towards it. And if we're 3 weeks into that assessment, then there's probably a problem, okay? How many have opened it but not started anything? How many have submitted some type of draft? How many have made a final submission? So in this instance, all 60 of my students have made a submission, which is great news for me. Off to the right-hand side, I can look at how I'm distributing my marks. So this is quite interesting. So how am I assigning my marks against this assessment? Have I got them all in the middle? Have I got them all on the upper side? Have I got them all on the lower side? So having a different representation about how you're assigning marks to your students, I think is really useful. But this is the good bit underneath. This is the bit that I like to get my teeth into. So I've got all my students listed down the left-hand side. I've got all of my marks on the right-hand side. In the middle is how my students have digested this assessment. So I can see here Boris opened this assessment quite late, submitted it early, and scored 93. So the amount of effort that he's had to put into that to get a good score is actually quite small. So Boris is actually understanding this course material really well, and that's great for Boris, that's really good. However, above, I've got Kylie. Kylie opened this assessment maybe a little bit late, but submitted it right at the end and scored 45. So I'm now starting to think Chloe's not getting a handle on the course content. Maybe I need to put some intervention in place to help Chloe, to help Kylie more, okay? So by having these sort of analytics sat behind the platform allows you as an academic to try and support the students that need support and stretch Boris, because Boris is obviously flying and I need to give him some more work to do, okay? So it gives you some handle, and this is how we're trying to use some of the data at Blackboard, going back to Tamsin's presentation at the start. So the grading and the student tracking in Learn Ultra is phenomenal.
Is this part of the, should I say, core?
This is part of the core package. This is off the shelf, yeah, this is absolutely. And to help you even more on the activity stream, if some of your students are starting to fall behind, I will be told that some of my students are starting to fall behind. So 21 of my students on my computer sciences course are starting to fall behind. I can click on that and it will take me to a graph which will load, just give me a second. So this is the student's mark down the left-hand side. This is the number of hours the students are spending into the course across the bottom. These are my students. The ones that are highlighted in purple are the ones that are underperforming, or where there's a down arrow where their performance is starting to drop, okay? And I could dive into any one of these students' details. So here's Angela. So I could dive into Angela's details and break that down even further. So I can really dive into some of the analytics that sit behind Angela about her hours that she's spending in the course, the mark that she's receiving, and whether there's any peaks or troughs that I need to address. I can email Angela directly from here. I can set up a calendar invite. You've mentioned calendars in your scoring. I can set up a calendar invite directly with Angela, or I can address all 21 students in one go here. And I can remove people from this data set, so I can say, well, I don't want to include Alan because I know Alan's on extended leave from the university at the moment because he's got some family issues. Or I could add people into the data set if there's additional people I want to add into the data set. So as an academic, you're still absolutely in charge of this data and you can still manipulate it as needed.
So let's say using a Pearson assignment tool inside the LMS, would you be able to get all this data from those assignments?
No. And let me just make that clear. This is for Blackboard-driven assessments, quizzes, discussion boards. If you're using a third party, the third parties often don't make all of the data available to us because it's their data. It's not Blackboard's data, it's their data. So again, it depends on how much the partner's working with us to how much visibility we can see. Okay, so that is just the limitations of doing those integrations, but it's basically down to what the partner makes available to us.
Sorry, if that integration does sync to your grade book.
Yes, so if you were doing that assessment in an external tool, you would complete the assessment in the external tool and the grade would come back, that's no problem. But all the data that sits against the way the students consumed that assessment wouldn't come back, just to make that differentiation.
The grades would.
Grades would, absolutely. Another question? Yeah.
Sorry for taking you back, where you showed us when you give feedback to students from a video recording, can it be done synchronously? And if it can you, or maybe both of you, the student and yourself, view the comments that perhaps you have given on an assignment and then be able to discuss?
Absolutely love that, and that's a really great way of giving feedback. So you can do text feedback, you can layer it up to video and audio feedback where you save that feedback and the student consumes it when they're ready. To do what you've just described, you would use Blackboard Collaborate. So you would invite the student to a Blackboard Collaborate session, you would bring the student's work up on screen and you would work through it together. So you absolutely can do that, and by the way, I love that use case, I think it's brilliant. To access the Collaborate session in the course, it's there, it's ready to go. So after the
web conferencing is already built into LMS.
So after the left-hand side of the course, you've got the course room here, Blackboard Collaborate. I can join that course, that room. The student can join that room, and you can do exactly as described live. So, e-portfolio. So, there was a piece in the rubric around e-portfolio, and I just want to show you that we do support e-portfolios. So,
sorry to take you back. On the analytics, is it available also on the student view to show them the progress, how they're performing and so forth?
So the student, from their point of view, can see the hours that they're spending in the course compared to the class average, and their mark compared to the class average. Okay, they don't see other students' names as part of that data set because that's not fair. It's data protection, it's GDPR. There's quite a lot that underwraps that, but we can show the class average, which then is an aggregation of all of the members of that course. So, good question. Across the system, we do have the option to use e-portfolios. So I can dive into the portfolio tool just here. I've got a work placement portfolio here, and this is a template that I've set up in order for my students to actually add things to the portfolio. So I'm able to, here we go, it's taking a second to load. You're going to see my face again. I think you've seen a lot of my face today. But effectively, I can set up an e-portfolio, I can set up a template, and against that template, students can submit artifacts to that template. And I've used work experience as one of the key drivers here. So I can have my 30 students go out and do work placement, they can build up a portfolio in this part of the system, and then I can keep an eye on what my students are doing while they're out on work placement. They can also freeze, I'm not in as a student, so I'm just struggling to show you this, they can freeze the portfolio at a point in time, submit that URL to you as part of an assignment submission. So this could be assignment submissions, this could also be for your research. If you want to build up a portfolio of what you're doing around your research, you could use the portfolio to build up those artifacts and attribute that towards your research. So you can use the portfolio tool, and this is part of the core platform. Alongside the portfolio, we've got things like enterprise-wide surveys, because we know you also mentioned surveys as part of your rubric. So you can do enterprise-wide surveys, so that's looking at everybody in the institution. So you might do a couple of those a year, where you're saying what's your satisfaction with the university, what do you like, what don't you like. But at course level, you can use the test tool as a survey tool. and you can use anonymous submissions as part of that as well. So you just rename the quiz or the test to become a survey. You use true, false, you can use scale questions, you can ask for descriptive feedback. You can structure that course survey at course level and get feedback about your teaching, your learning, your research, the student's experience, digital experience, so on and so forth. So there's multiple ways of building up surveys within the system. Yes, one of the other features that we do have is I've uploaded a Word document onto my course content here. It's in my Rising Oceans folder. Just wait for that to load. Oh,
sorry.
Oh, sorry, didn't see you.
No problem, sorry about that. I just thought I want to ask this before you move on. I want to ask something about the e-portfolio tool because we use it quite extensively.
Okay.
So what we do is we ask other participants to comment on each other's portfolios. So is that possible? They also do a peer assessment of the portfolio. Is that possible?
Yes. So there's two ways of, so speaking to both those points, first of all, yes, you can open up the portfolio so others can make comments on each other's portfolios, okay? You can also bring in some of the other tools within the course experience if you wanted to really broaden it out. So why don't you have a discussion about portfolios, and then the class can work together on forming that discussion. So what do you like about some of the portfolios? Maybe where can some of the portfolios be improved? And as part of that discussion, you could even make a rubric available so that as students are going through, make that rubric available so that you're giving them a structure to give critical feedback. Okay? So you can do, yeah, you just use the tools of the LMS to make that happen.
Okay, that's great. And then also, so once that student leaves the institution, they obviously won't have access to the e-portfolio any longer. Is there a way for them to...
They can export it. Yes, they can export it and take it. And it comes out as a zip file, which is a common format of file. So it's not locked in some really strange, random format that nobody else can access unless you're using Blackboard. Because it comes out as a zip, it's got all of your artifacts in there, and it's got the actual layouts of the pages in HTML. That's how the zip is structured. So quite useful. Okay, so just one more thing I'll cover with you then, and then we'll just check the rubric to make sure we've ticked the boxes we've gone through. So I've got a Word document here. A student can access that Word document just by clicking on it, and that Word document will download to my device. There's nothing revolutionary there about the way that that works. However, what we also make available to students is we make available alternative formats. So the student can, of course, download that as a Word document, but what they can also do is download it as an audio version, for example. So here is my Word document. I want to listen to it because actually as a learner, as a student, I understand things better if they're read out to me than if I'm reading something off a piece of paper. So what Ally, this is the tool that's at play here, what Ally can do is it can allow students to have documents read out to them. It can also make these documents available offline in different formats. So then you can put something like this Word document into iBooks on your iPad or your iPhone or on a Mac. And then you can change the background colour, you can change the text size, because we all struggle with different sizes of text, if things are too small, if things are too big. So once you drop it into something like iBooks, then you can change the text size of the document much easier than you can than if it was in Word. Or you can have a HTML version of the Word document which makes it responsive to the size of the mobile browser. Has anybody ever used a Word document on a mobile phone? It runs off the edge of the screen and you're constantly scrolling left and right. The HTML version just fixes that. It just fixes it. So these alternative formats that are available for students are a great way to address. If you've got a course with 1,400 students on it, you can't start making manual alternative formats available. Let the system do it for you. It again saves you time.
And this also comes back to accessibility, right? If you've got a student that's hard of hearing, hard of seeing, and using a screen reader, we have to be building content that doesn't discriminate against students with a disability. So this product helps you provide alternative formats to those students.
So
just touching on that question, does within the interface of Blackboard, does it allow for voice recognition,
software to
Yes.
read out?
So Blackboard is built based on accessibility. We, by law, we have to provide, develop what we call universal designed products. And that ultimately means we have to have keyboard shortcuts. We have to have, it has to work with a screen reader. It has, so the LMS itself, the technology, is built with accessibility requirements in mind. And then you take that, we take it further. We say, this is not just about the technology, this is about the content in the technology that has to be consumed. You're discriminating against a student if they have to wait 3 weeks to get an alternative format of that same document, which everyone could read in the first module, right? Because they have to maybe first go and get the Braille version before they can do anything. So we're saying, no, everyone should be treated equal.
Just another question on that. If you download content from Blackboard, does it put it into a format that it can be read out for students that have disabilities?
Yeah, so that's the audio version that you saw on screen. You download the audio version. So it's an MP3. MP3.
But if you don't, okay. Just one more thing I want to ask. If you copy from a document with Word, with formatting, different colors and bolding, if you copy and you paste within a lesson or whatever, does it keep that formatting or do you have to?
Well, that's actually working against the Word file, so you make the Word file available, and then against that you've got those alternative formats. So we're not asking you to copy and paste anything out and drop it into the LMS, we're asking you to upload the Word file, and then those alternative formats are available. So we made it
If you copy something from a Word document and you're going to put little text in that's got formatting and stuff, will it keep that formatting or not?
It will keep the formatting when you drop it in, yeah. So in the content editor it will be the formatting of Word, but then you're relying on the screen reader to read it out to you, not the fact that you can download it. So it depends which way you want to present it to your students. We're giving you choice again. So
I'm very conscious that we need a bio break. I'm sure everyone does, and we've gone through so much.
We've gone through a lot.
I just want to check with you, going through the document, if there's anything you feel we've missed. We've gone through, page 1 was gone through right early in the presentation. Did anyone feel there was something missing? Anyone have a question?
I was talking about on-screen marking.
Well, I'll see if I can quickly show it to you. So I'll tell you what I can do. Let's dive into the Grade Centre and have a look what the Grade Centre looks like. So we've got 2 views in the Grade Centre. This is the first view. This is called a list view. So I can see all of my assessments all in one place, and I can see how many are missing, and they're glowing red because they're overdue as well. Okay. The other view that I've got is a table view. So the table view might be more familiar to you, where you've got your students down the left-hand side, you've got your assessments across the top, and I can see all of the progress that my students are making with these assessments. Okay? Some of the cool functionality in here is that I can download the entire grade book if I wanted to. I can download individual assessments so that I can mark offline and then re-upload them once they're marked. I can search for individual students in here, so let's use Chloe again. I'm just focusing on Chloe. I want to see what Chloe's been doing. I've now got my screen nice and clear, and I'm just focusing on what Chloe's been doing. If I went across to one of Chloe's assignments, see if I can find one quickly, I can click on Mark Now. That's a bad example. I'll try to find one where I was going to try and show you the marking interface. It's similar to, no, that's not the one. I just don't have any content in here to be able to show you that, but it's very similar to the discussion where you've got the students' work on the left-hand side, you've got your rubric, the plagiarism report, the feedback down the right-hand side, and the screen, you can see it all at the same time when you're doing all of that. So, sorry I can't jump in and show, I was really hoping I could there, but it didn't quite work. So yeah, offline grading will take place, so you can download it all to your machine. So this is the thing with academics. Do you want to grade students' work on a mobile phone? I've heard multiple times that you don't want to grade on a mobile phone. You do kind of need the real estate of the desktop in order to do that well. So if you're using desktop, you would download all of these submissions in a zip file, you make the changes, you re-upload them. That's nice and simple. In the Instructor app, offline is available as well, where you can do lightweight offline grading. The problem is using a mobile phone screen to grade, it does get difficult. That's not a limitation from Blackboard, I think it's just a limitation of the screen size. to give really good detailed feedback on a mobile screen. It's doable, but it's not as easy as using a desktop. So I'm just trying to give you some context there for what I would deem is the right route as an academic to do it. And I would tend to default to a desktop experience, but it is possible in the mobile.
Okay, so any other questions about page 1 where you feel we haven't mentioned anything, so you've marked everything 10 out of 10? Okay, page 2, anything on page 2 we've covered pretty well, we've covered everything, but any questions, anything you feel you want to see? Yes, sir.
Answer the gentleman Kevin's question, answered it with groups, but his question was more about teaching assistants as markers.
Okay.
So you have those groups, and then you want to allocate a teaching assistant within a group to only a subset of that group to mark, not to take part as a group member.
So there's a couple of things there. The first thing is the roles that you've got in a course. So we've got a student role, we've got an instructor role is what we call it, which is typically an academic. And then we do actually have a marker role. So the marker role allows other members of staff to go in and not add course content, but just mark what they're given, okay? And you would use delegated grading to assign those groups to those markers. So you could say, yeah, so you mark group 1, you mark group 2, you mark group 3, okay?
You mark 3 people of group 1, that's what he was asking.
So you want to mark 3 people within group 1, not the whole group?
Yeah.
That's where we probably get a little bit more challenging, so I'd want to see what's on the roadmap to support that coming forward, because we're still building out more functionality around that. So you want to really go into the detail about that particular workflow. We'll find out for you and we'll come back. That's fine. We can do that.
I'm just disappointed about the flexibility and the ability to create groups with very large courses and students taking the courses at different times. It becomes very important that you can conveniently create multiple and different groups and assign those easily. If you have to do those all by hand, which is the kind of functionality you showed us, it's not very useful to us.
Well, we'll come back to you with a more comprehensive answer on that. I think I want to couple that with some roadmap items that are coming, so I need to understand the functionality of the roadmap as well, and then come back to you with a more solid answer around that. Okay?
Anything else on page 2? Page 3? Grading, calendars, textbook publishers. Anything there? No? Training materials, I can answer that for you. So the last one on that page is training materials. We have 2 options, which also actually speaks to page 4, which talks about online help resources. We've got online help resources for students, instructors, and administrators. It's on our help.blackboard.com. It's very, very detailed, and it's kept up to date, so that's accessible to all of our users, our clients. And then we have a materials version as well. Not many institutions use it nowadays, they go for the online version, but we do have a printed version which is fully customizable, and we keep it up to date so that you can repurpose it, and it is for anything from training students or training instructors or help materials that you can repurpose.
I think it's probably worth just touching on the importing, the exporting of content as well, because I've talked about copying content from other courses, but what about from other LMSs? So typically, LMS providers support IMS Global's Common Course Cartridge, and that is a type of file that would be exported from your current VLM, LMS, and then we would import that into Blackboard. So we can bring content from outside of Blackboard and drop it into Blackboard. As an academic, you might want to export your Blackboard course and send it somewhere else. And you'll see at the top of the course options here, I can export the course package. So I can wrap up everything in this course and take it out to another provider. So the migration of content can absolutely be done as well.
Okay, and then moving on to the last page, I believe, where we're talking about online help. We've just answered archives.
Online help is there.
Yeah, and archives, it's pretty simple. We archive every 50 days.
So actually what we do, we take a backup of your entire system every 24 hours, okay? And we keep those active for 30 days. So if you accidentally delete your course, nothing to fret about. We've got the archive there for 30 days that you can pull on. So you can say, deleted my course last Wednesday, can you pull it off for Tuesday backup? Blackboard will help you do that and restore your course for you. And you can obviously have internal policies and procedures about local backups of courses. If if that's what you want to do. Because many institutions have retention policies around courses, so we'll just work with you on what your policy looks like and how we'd work with you on Blackboard. Browser support is all published on our help pages, so
I've support all of that.
Yes.
Server requirements, well,
I think we did that as part of the Amazon. Yeah.
Amazon scalability, we've already explained to you, this is flexibility. The power of cloud allows for scalability, so that when there are peaks and then there are troughs, that you're constantly having base uptime. Integrations, we've talked about. Integration with campus authentication. Authentication is pretty standard. Every LMS does authentication. If you're a good LMS, you do authentication through multiple methods. And integration with the campus portal. I don't know much about the campus portal, what it is exactly, what coding it uses, but yes, it adheres to standard integration with the community.
I will just pick up on the integration with student information systems. So your users can automatically be created within Blackboard. Your courses can automatically be created in Blackboard. You can push content into courses from a central location as well if you wanted to. So there's quite a lot that we could unpick there. I just want to touch upon it that typically, yes, we can do all of that, but I don't want to get too technical with it either, so I'm just trying to pitch it. Questions?
Actually relating to the integration with the system. So sometimes we have late registrations,
yes.
And so let's say Alicia wanted to add a student to the course, somebody that's just joined recently. Can you do that?
That's a very common request and one that will be fixed. So as a student gets enrolled centrally, you can dictate how often the data is passed between your student record system and Blackboard. That could be every hour, and many institutions do run that update every hour. Some institutions run it every day. So if they're not on Blackboard today, they'll be on Blackboard, enrolled on your course tomorrow. So it's down to an institutional policy about how often you want to update Blackboard with your student record system. Okay? Great question. Thank you. Yeah?
Yeah. Integration with the campus authentication. We will pretty much need support for SAML. SAML.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
SAML's good.
So we love SAML.
A bit of LDAP.
SAML's good, LDAP's good, Active Directory's good, yeah. We can pretty much say yes to all common single sign-on methods. So.
Yes. So with your learning analytics, right, you would identify slow learners, faster learners. You haven't commented just on personalized learning, especially if some students are behind or ahead. How would that work?
So the way you would do that is through the conditional availability. Do you remember I touched upon conditional availability? So if a student's done really well in a quiz, you can make more stretching and challenging content available to them, and only the students that have done well will see that content. If a student's underperformed, then you send them down a different path and different content's made available to them to help support them understanding the topic more. So you can sculpt those learning pathways through the content that you've got available on your LMS, and the students will only see the content based on the performance that they're actually showing. So that's all a part of the conditional availability.
Okay, and then just the last one, just on gamification, because there are some applications for some topics that we teach. Do you have that also?
So we can gamify in a number of ways. I think Tamsin's just having a moment. We can gamify it in a number of ways, and actually we look at it from both a student and a member of staff's point of view, believe it or not, because I can show you some gamification from a staff point of view, which is quite an interesting take on some of these. But from a student's point of view, we support open badges and things. So if you want to challenge the students to do X, Y, and Z, and then at the end of doing X, Y, and Z, then they get a badge for doing that, then we can bring in badges and support students trying to gamify the process of learning. You can also do learning modules, which I didn't mention today. So you can effectively say, right, I want a student to start at this piece of content, work through multiple pieces of content, and then when they get to the end, they get something back for doing that. And I would relate that to badges is a good way of doing that. Or maybe they get access to, I don't know, something special online that will be linked out to them at that point. You can come up with multiple academic things around that. With regards to staff and gamification, That accessibility tool that I showed you around the accessible versions, the staff view of that is how accessible is your piece of content. So you get a score out of 100 for that, and if you've got a low score, obviously as an academic, you probably want to go and make that content more accessible. So we can actually gamify some of that so that you can improve the accessible nature of your content.
Just touching on that, does it give you guidelines within the interface when you create your content?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. It actually gives you guidelines on why something's not accessible. So if you're a teacher that's making photocopies of a photocopy, that's really bad.
Yeah.
And around when it comes to accessibility, no screen reader can read that. So it's going to say to you, hey, like maybe you should consider adjusting it this way. Have you considered closed captioning if it's a video? Like the web conferencing tool that you saw, that we can flip in and out of online meetings, you can close caption things there so that students can read it as opposed to just listen.
So I'm just trying to bring it up. So here we go. So I've got that Word document that I showed you the alternative formats for, scored 68% with regards to its accessibility. Okay. As an academic, you're probably going to want to think, well, what have I got wrong with this document? Why isn't it 100? I want this to be 100%. Okay. So what the system is telling you is where you can actually improve the accessibility of that Word document. Okay. And it's going to give you some guidance about how to do that. And then you can upload, just here onto the bottom right hand side, you can upload a better version of that content once you've made those changes. So when we talk about gamifying it for staff as well, this is what I'm talking about. You want your scores to be as high as you can so that your content is most accessible to the students.
And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is something about e-commerce. I don't know if it has any intentions of selling micro-learning further down the road. Maybe. Well, some of my clients, some of our university clients do these kind of what they call micro-learning courses. And they sell that. And so we have an interface that's a separate product. It actually sits on top of the LMS and then it allows someone, like let's say Cecil wants to do a course at BITS. They can put their credit card information in and participate in a course and get access to that information. We also have, if you want to open up your course and create a MOOC, that's totally possible. We have a course site. All our clients get access to course sites. And you get 5 courses that you can build out. It looks exactly like the LMS that you're used to. So it's not about using one LMS for your campus students and then using another LMS for your MOOC environment. You can use one. And import course information from one to the other. So we have
That's the e-commerce platform.
Yeah, this is the e-commerce platform that sits on top of it. But that's maybe way down the road. It's just a differentiator, right? Because we recognize that, again, institutions have to find third-party revenue streams. Research is not the only place where they make money. It's not student fees is not the only place they make money. So we have to constantly be thinking outside the box. How can we help institutions within their broader ecosystem? So if there's no other questions, and we do need a break. I've seen a lot of people teaching. So we'll have a quick break. It's now, let's see the time, it's 6 minutes past 12. So if we can get 12:15, then we just need to get through the last open LMS. Clear your brain of Ultra, come back fresh, new LMS.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Oh yeah, that's what
But the nice thing about it,
unfortunately, it's just my product knowledge. I don't know about every single product in the market. So, effectively, I mean, we can take it through you contact these people and say, how would I integrate with they should have these. They either do or they don't. And they should have it. They should have okay, so unless somebody's built an integration for us, because there's no way of looking at it. There has to be a hook, whether it's moving or it's campus or Blackboard, whether it's stroke, whether it's there has to be a hook in. So it's not so it's not so it's another tool control. It's effectively a set of standards which show how to function. So if they were to take out integration, they're basically to talk to another product using those standards. Okay? So without those standards in there, then there's actually no way to do it. So it's relying on that third party to actually open up the does that make sense? So you can't just have any software package that plugs into a VA because you need to somehow put it in. So there has to be the integration. But yeah, it's if these are open source and API is not part of it, not just anything else, then you could create an API, but how should I never create an API? So I don't know. Link to it, yeah. So worst case scenario, you get the picture. You make it available. Worst case and it means if they do some more, a link. It's something specific to your no, that's good. So that's why we want the standards because
I'm really out of passion.
Yeah, so if you like going on for a while. This is a growing conversation, certainly in the UK.
The battery was better.
On everywhere else.
Way out of
Turnitin
passion.
having some at the moment.
Yes, yeah.
If they can do enough work to make the maternity license, they'll say tens of thousands. And if you freelance Safeassign, you should be built into So I said, look, we are the second biggest originality children's school in the world. So you would, this is the thing, no matter if you take a piece of work and you put it through eternity, you take the same piece of work and put it through Safeassign or any other project, you're always going to get different responses because we're not all using the same data. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we've all got different methodologies. Nobody's saying that one's better than the other, but we've just got different levels of database. But the size of the database has to be consideration, because obviously the more things that you're checking, then it might be dealing with this. I mean, some people have said it's the 2 database now too overloaded because it's so much plagiarism? Is it too big? Is one thing. But it's down to an institution to decide. It's an institutional level decision.
Does it scale down to pieces?
Good question. Without being reference proper. I don't know about images. Again, so the one place that I would put you towards if you want to find out the answer to that question, which is where I would get to that question, help.blackboard.com. There is a specific section on Safeassign. Because you can license it as a separate tool, you don't have to Blackboard. So with Blackboard you get it for free as part of your bigger Blackboard license, but if you don't license Blackboard, you can still have Safeassign. So we've got Safeassign pages that tell you all of the information, how we objected, how we presented back to our students, how we presented back to you as academic. So all of that is documented on our pages. Everything I've shown you today is documented on our pages. But this is the thing, the whole product has been designed so that you can just pick it up and you might need to know 2 or 3 key things. For me as an academic, I need to know is where I can have content, but once I know that, I'm never going to forget it. And that is my point to do with all the great systems. Wherever there's a loss, I can do that. That is a big part. Once you've learned that, everything else is pretty self-explanatory. So we go for that hands-on style experience, the high school style experience, the Instagram style experience. That's what we're trying to match. Now we've got Blackboard Learn, which everyone seems to know. We've got Blackboard Learn, we've got Blackboard Learn, and it's very powerful. But it's actually so academic there's just so many layers to it, and we find that most people use 20% of the features because there's just so much functionality. With Learn Ultra, we've got the opposite. So I think as an academic, it's probably 80% of what's in Learn Ultra, but you'll use it much better, and that's going to be a better position. You've got to because there's no point chucking tools at LMS for the sake of, well, it might work, it might not work, you might use it, but you might not. What we'd rather say is let's design for the 80%, and then we can do the 20% in each other. Yes, because if there's no academic production of it, the two go hand in hand. When I was back in education, it was only 2 years ago, I ran a very interesting study but I found more tools than so if you had a Word document, but then if they were doing their assessment within Blackboard, adoption went forward. If they were using collaboration, adoption went forward. So it was the breadth. So it wasn't just the number of tools, but it was the breadth of tools as well. And actually caused my academics and the students to engage with the technology. So that was just a good idea. Everything becomes more engaged. Okay? No problem. Hello, how are you? Nice to meet you. I'm Richard. Related to where you are. Yes. That's basically the assessment. So you've got multiple groups happening on the same year as well. No. So when we do self-sign for groups, what's the number of groups? Well, that's okay because you can set the number of self-enrollments. I think you're going to struggle to do it. So you're layering your self-enrollment at this level, but you want to split we can do this level at the moment, we can't do that level at the moment. There are other ways to do it. I mean, I know that the gentleman on the back was looking over the API answer, but you've got all of this information in the student record system. If they've made a decision, or you make a decision about which groups and how it's all split up, we can just feed that into Blackboard and the groups are just appear however you want them to. So you can have 40. Yes, so we've got attendance built into the system. So the other thing that you can do, no, you can do it all in the system. So you can mark everybody as present and then just go through and do the exceptions. So that's all the way. Yeah, they can do that. Thinking about it another way, we've always thought, but the way it sounds like you're working at the moment, you have 12 questions groups and then you can group them underneath. How about you have a master course and then you create sub-courses based on your groups? So anything you change in the master course affects the courses underneath. And then 25 students in this group, 25 students in that group, 25 students in this group. So you have your master template and then you do multiple courses underneath. Is another way of doing it. So just because you've always had 1,200 people enrolled in a course doesn't mean that that's how you might do it in the future. You can have, if this is a separate group of students that work together on everything they do, why am I confusing it with 1,175 students? Let's take those out. This is their specific course. This is where their grading is going to take place. This is where their conversation is going to take place. This is where their assessment is going to take place. The quizzes, the content, everything specific to that group. We might have a very different structure to this group over here, and it doesn't matter what I do in this course here, this course is going to stay like this. So instead of looking at advanced groups, we should look at doing advanced courses and doing it that way. So there's several ways to go about it. It's just whatever works best for you. So I'm guessing at the moment, you've got a master group, and then you're using the groups and then the split one. So this is an improvement, just the fact that you can say, I want groups that contain 25 students go, and it will just split them. Oh, I see, right, okay, so you can flip them around. So that's the part where because they've got their equipment. So again, there's so many different ways to approach this, and we see so many different institutions doing it differently, but some of this can be controlled in the student reference system and just rolled and pushed into Blackboard. You can have that middle level of intervention where you're doing an Excel spreadsheet and then pushing that into Blackboard. You can use the tools within the system to drive some of that as well. So there's multiple levels of doing it. And just because you're doing it, I get it. Right. Right. But it gets 80% of it. Yes. Yeah. So I think this is where we're going to do, I think what we're going to have to do, assuming that which I'm very hopeful to do what we're doing, is we will have to sit down as a team, get some of the student records, get some of the get some economics, and actually start looking about how we want to make this happen. Because the way we've always done it has been some part of the system. If those systems are to change, what would be the better workflow than before? So just because you've always done it this way, doesn't mean you'll always do that in the future. So I think it's just opening up that conversation. But this is one of the great things about working with Blackboard is we've got the record there to be able to have this conversation. Even if we need to work with that, so they can understand so I'm not worried that you're having this conversation with me. It's really good to know that you identified a particular issue that we might have, but we'll just sit down and discuss it further.
You have to start.
doing the attendance. Bang, you're done. Excellent.
Find something.
Sorry?
Find something with that.
So you knew CAB?
Okay, yes, just came over here.
I know him very well.
I'm a new face.
Yeah, you knew. He's borrowing
I think you
a
might
lot.
try to go to the HTML. I think
When I was the student, so they need to look at my name.
Johnny, you.
Oh yes, thinking, is this okay from the 50%?
This is
Another one. Another one.
You could always like put these two in front.
Yeah.
There's space to move along.
Dit is moeilijk. Je trapt daarover. Al benullen dit zo simpel te doen. Ja, ja, ja. Dus je probeert maar je best te doen.
I was saying this thing is like very skewed, but I fixed it. Yeah. It wasn't so full, but I tried to fix it. It's one of the days.
It usually happens if you
We're going to have to
take them.
fly through the next presentation as quickly as we possibly can. But please do stop us if you have questions. Feel free to ask questions. We welcome that. If you could all just take a new evaluation form, please, because this is a completely different product. Same faces.
Thank you. I was
Different
saying I'm
product.
not here. I was about to be shocked because I thought maybe my colleague didn't do it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you're all caffeinated and sugared up with your biscuits because you're going to need it for the next session. We're unique in this way that Blackboard has two LMSs. Why? Well, because we've got clients who are big open source fans and who don't want to be on a proprietary system like the one you saw previously. And therefore, we provide two options. We don't force anything. We allow clients to select the LMS of their choice. So, today you're going to see our second LMS. It's called Open LMS. It's based on Moodle, which hopefully you're all familiar with. And Moodle Vanilla is a great tool, but Moodle Vanilla has some shortcomings. And so what we've done is we've taken Moodle Vanilla and we've turned it into stracciatella by injecting steroids, I guess you could say, into the product. Because things like Moodle doesn't have really great reporting functions, so we fixed it. Moodle doesn't have a really great way of creating a personal learning path. We've had to fix that. Moodle's something that you have to host on campus or by yourself through a third-party cloud. Our solution is already in the cloud, built in the cloud. So we have a completely open solution, and we're going to walk you through that today as quickly as we can.
Okay. Sorry, you're back to me. Hello, welcome. Thanks for coming. So just to underline, the PowerPoint that you saw at the start of today's session stands true for both Blackboard Learn Ultra, which you saw earlier, and OpenLMS. This is a SaaS solution. We provide 99.9% uptime. We've got the power of Amazon Web Services stood behind us, so we can scale your environment to suit your needs. We can grow that environment if the demand picks up. We can shrink it down once that demand falls away again. So all of that great architecture stays, and all of the support for this is done through Blackboard as well. So help.blackboard.com supports both Learn Ultra and OpenLMS, and it's the same ticketing system. So if you've got a problem, you can put a ticket into us, and we'll deal with it regardless of the platform. So I just want to make it absolutely crystal clear that the support mechanisms and everything that goes around products stays exactly the same, whether you pick one or the other. Moodle is open sourced, and that gives you some flexibility, because then you can develop the platform to what you want it to be. But it can also cause some challenges, because the community can grow it in a particular way that you're not happy with. And unfortunately, if you want to stay with Moodle, you're going to have to adopt that process. Okay? Now, as Tamsin made reference to, at Blackboard, we've added some layers on top of Moodle, and we've called it OpenLMS. So I'll try and take you through some of those layers now. You can put Blackboard Collaborate on top of OpenLMS. You can put the accessibility tool, Blackboard Ally, on top of OpenLMS. So the partner integrations stay robustly the same. We're just changing that core of VLE. So I know that you've all scored us extremely high for Blackboard Learn, but where you've got those integration services and everything, the score should be identical for Blackboard OpenLMS, because the actual underpinning technology is good. So I've just ticked off about half the scoring on your sheet with 10s, so thank you. So OpenLMS, let's see where we start here. So this is the login screen, so I'm going to start in exactly the same place. We're going to follow an academic's journey, similar to what we did before. The first thing on your tick sheet is design and layout. So again, we use something called the Snap theme as part of OpenLMS. This makes it completely responsive. So I'll just drop that all the way down. You'll notice that my content has restructured itself to now the size of my mobile screen. If I blow it back up, there we go. It's now refocused itself onto the desktop experience. So once again, we're talking about a responsive learning environment, and that looks extremely attractive. Okay, so we want this to be drawn. We want to be drawing academics into this, but more importantly, we want students to be engaging with it as well. This home page you can customise within the user interface, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a short while. So you could give some trial courses to non-students to try and help them, to convince them to come to this university rather than the university down the road. So you could give them some free access to some courses, and you can do that in Blackboard Learn Ultra. I didn't show you, but we can do that on OpenLMS. You can also feature particular courses, and you can set up catalogues of courses that are all accessible from this login screen. And this is brandable. So you'll notice that we've got the Monument University logo in the top left-hand corner. So that would have your logo as an institution. The blue bar doesn't have to be blue. It can match the colours of your institution. These images are all interchangeable, and again, towards the end, I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to log in, and as I said, I'm going to log in as an academic. It is worth pointing out, before we go too deep into it, there was a portfolio question, multiple portfolio questions earlier. Moodle OpenLMS doesn't have a core ePortfolio product as part of its core. We actually rely on a third-party solution called Mahara. So we will actually integrate Mahara. Are you familiar with Mahara? Anybody in the room? Yeah, I've got a nod there, so that's good. So we can actually integrate Mahara with Learn as well, but I'm just saying that we will integrate it with OpenLMS as part of the solution. So you'll see there, log into your account using Mahara. You can do that on here. So I'm going to log in, and let's dive into what it looks like as I log in as a member of staff. It says, as the internet slows down. Yay. There we go, brilliant. Okay, so once I've logged in, once again, we focus the user's attention onto what we call primary content. There we go. It has logged in. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So, in the middle of the screen, I can see the courses that I've got access to. So once again, we're applying some very pretty pictures in order to draw people into the course experience. You'll notice that we can favourite these courses as well, so you'll start to see familiar things here between Learn and Open LMS. So I can favourite my health and safety course. Oh, it's really not that good in this one. I'm just going to open up a new browser to do this because it keeps glitching me out. I'm just struggling with a bit of internet connectivity. So talk amongst yourselves for a moment, I'll be back with you.
There's something wrong with the Wi-Fi suddenly. Is there someone, can we help someone's
So
Wi-Fi?
just disconnect and connect again.
Oh, get disconnected. The tricks. You know the tricks? The Wi-Fi tricks. The Wi-Fi's dropped us.
Right.
Wi-Fi.
You walk up and it just magically happens. Appreciate that.
They know Lucy.
Okay, good. All right.
We're in.
Okay.
Whoa! Okay, right. Sorry about that. Turn that one off because I don't want people feedback. Okay, so we've got this lovely interface where you can access your courses, okay? You can favourite courses and push them back to the top, and you can drop them back down as you need to so that you can keep the focus on the courses that you're accessing most often. Across the top, we've got something called categories. So you can categorise courses. Now, the simple version of this is years. So I can do 2017, 2018, 2019. So you can give your students that historical view of those courses, which many institutions obviously want to do. And you can also do that in Blackboard Learn Ultra, but you can do it here as well. Off to the right-hand side, it's effectively a similar thing to the activity stream. So what deadlines have I got coming up? As an academic, what needs grading? What messages am I receiving? And what's going on across my forums? So it is effectively a cut-down version of the activity stream that you see in Learn Ultra. So keeping the focus on what's important to you, and the students get a very similar view about what's important to them at that moment in time, and I can simply click through on those deadlines and go ahead and submit something ready to submit. So this is a really nice space. What I can do is dive into a particular course. So if I go into my computer forensics course, this is now the course experience here. So that banner that is on the home page also comes through to the course experience. Now, me logging into this has popped up with a message welcoming me to this course. So this is using the personalised learning designer to do this. And I'm going to talk more to you about how you would personalise a student's pathway through learning in a few minutes. But this is, I can effectively prompt messages to come up as certain activities are happening across the system. So I think I've got 3 of those that are about to pop up. There we go. So now off to the left-hand side, I've kind of got my course structure. And you can structure this however you want to as an academic. So it could be week 1, week 2, week 3. This is organised by topic. So I'm looking at computer programming, network fundamentals, so on and so forth. Okay. And then in the centre of the screen, I've actually got the structure of the content. Oh look, there's one again. So I've got some documents here that I've uploaded. I've got a course introductions forum. So I'm expecting my students to jump into a discussion forum to go and introduce themselves to each other. I've got a collaborate session here. So I can layer Blackboard Collaborate into this. So I can have my students going out using video and audio. I've got a test. So as the students come into my course, I might not have any idea about their previous engagements with my topic. I want to test their understanding. So I can get a model on whether they've got a good base level of knowledge or not. And I can layer on all sorts of things. So that's one of our product managers for Learn Ultra. But I can go through and I can layer on different types of assessment, peer assessment. I can structure the content as I want. Now, we mentioned earlier drag and drop capabilities. We can do that in Open LMS as well. So I've just dragged a file on and my assignment brief is now there, ready to go. So it is really straightforward. I can go in and I can edit the options around that particular assignment brief. So if I wanted to show the visibility or hide the visibility, I could do restrict access based on a date. So I can say, well, I'll put this on there now, but I don't want my students to see it until a week on Friday. Then I can do all of that through my activity restrictions. Going back to my computer forensics course, scrolling down to the bottom. So next to the drag and drop option, I've got the option to create a learning activity. So here I can click on that, and this is where we get a range of things that I can add onto my course. So I've got assignment, I've got a lesson, so I can structure content in a particular order. I've got forums, so that I can set up those discussion boards. I've got a quiz, I've got a survey. So the tools that come out of the box with Open LMS are probably the tools you'd expect to see. And you can grow this, so as you start to grow your third-party integration, so it might be Turnitin, it could be Vital Source Bookshelf could sit in here, it could be Kaltura, Panopto, so those very popular integrations that you'll have as an institution will actually sit in this area as well. So I've got Collaborate as the example here, so I can link Collaborate in. We can also build resources here, so I can simply add files, I can add a new folder of content, so I can put files in folders. I can label, so I can just put labels across different pieces, different parts of the course to point students in the right direction. I can create a page of content. So again, we've not got time this morning to go through all elements of this, but just to make some similarities, I think it probably makes sense to build out another assignment. So if I click on my assignment option, I will then go into actually creating my assignments. And it works in a similar way to what it does in Learn Ultra. So I can give the assignment a name of assignment. Here is where I would build out the description. So there were the 3 elements in Learn Ultra. This is the 3rd element of building it out. So here I can add a file, I can link out to content, I can do video content, I can do a number of things here in order to structure content. Scrolling down, I've got to give a due date to this. So you'd expect to put a due date on an assessment, so there's no rocket science there. But then off to the right-hand side, there is a huge plethora of options that I've got about how I want to actually set this up. And this is where you might start comparing and contrasting Learn Ultra to Blackboard Open LMS to see what's going to work best for you. So the main differences for me, if I was to look at the 2 products, is the granularity that you can go down to here is pretty extreme. Okay, you can go into more depth, but then there's probably more training required to bring this to life, because the amount of options available. So it depends what's going to work for you as an institution, because when you've got more options, there generally needs to be more training against those options. So I can allow submission from a set date to a set date. I can have reminders for grading. I can look at the different types of submissions that I want. Do I want an e-portfolio submission? Do I want to limit the size of the submission to 20 megabytes, or do I want a massive file of 500 megabytes submitted with this? Do I only want to allow certain file types, a docx, .xl, so on and so forth, xlx rather. So you can really go down into granular settings here. We do have the Safeassign option here, so we can integrate Blackboard Safeassign, so the plagiarism and originality checker can be integrated with Open LMS as well, so that you can see the originality and the plagiarism of student submissions. How would I like to grade this assessment, and the outcomes and so on against it. So there are a number of options that you can set up against an Open LMS assignment. Again, I'm not going to take you through them all. We are pretty tight on time now, so I just wanted to take you through some of those good things. I'm going to leave that. And if I scroll all the way back down, so I've got an assignment here that I was actually playing about with yesterday, and I wanted to look at the types of rubrics that you can apply to assessments. So if I go into this submission here, I can go into the settings against this. I think it's in the settings, let me just find it. And advanced grading, I can then set up a rubric in here. Okay, so in my advanced grading settings, I can set up a rubric. Now I can pull on an institutionally set rubric. So if you've got a rubric centrally that you can apply to multiple assessments, you can pull on that. Or, like in Learn Ultra, you can create your own and then reuse that at multiple points. So I can define a new grading rubric from scratch, or give it a name and a description. And then this is actually where I would build out the rubric line by line, and I can add different levels. So I'm building out the rubric to suit the assessment that I'm doing. So I'm just, again, conscious of the scoring and the fact that rubrics are built in. You can also apply rubrics against forums, so it doesn't have to be against an assessment, you can apply it against forums and all sorts of different pieces of content. I want to go back to the main area of the course, because I'm focusing quite heavily here on the primary content of the course, which is what the students would be seeing. The secondary content of the course, we put on something called the course dashboard. So if I want to see who's registered on this course, and that goes back to a student records integration, when those feeds are coming through, has that student been enrolled on my course share? You can see that from the participants list just here. So as those feeds come in, the participants list will get updated. I can go out and do some grading. There's two types of grading. There's core Moodle workflows around grading, which is called Gradebook. And then we've introduced Open Grader, which is more like a Blackboard Learn experience, where you've got the student's document on the one side of the page, we've got the grading criteria on the right-hand side of the page. So we're just making it slightly easier, so we're layering in that functionality to the product to make your grading a little bit stronger. There is also a big section on reports, so if you wanted to go and report on which of your students haven't done something, which of your students have done something but their results weren't great, so you want to marry it up against something, there's a ton of reports, and I've got a little video to show you on that. And then we've got things like badges, so that comes back to a question that was answered earlier about gamification. So the badges are in the system here, they're ready to go, so you can apply badges to certain types. So students got to complete 3 things before they get access to a badge to say that they've done that.
So the 3, you can export to Mozilla?
Correct, you can export to Mozilla, open badges, yeah. And the big one that I want to go into is PLD, which is Personalised Learning Designer. So Personalised Learning Designer can be as simple as you want, or it can be as complex as you want. So effectively you build rules into your courses here to create learning pathways and to create notifications and emails out to students. So let's give you an example. Let's build a rule together. So I could effectively say, let's give it a name, so rule name 1. So I want, when an activity is graded, and I need to select what activity needs to be graded, so I could say rubric test needs to be graded. I could then set some conditions against that, so I can say when the activity receives a particular grade, and I need the grade to be less than 65%, then I want something to happen. And I can say, right, I want to send an email to the students that score less than 65%, and this is what I want the email to look like. Okay? So you can build these rules into the courses so that you can say, you score low on that assessment, you're going to get an email from me saying, right, you haven't done very well in this assessment, your next steps are X, Y, and Z. Okay? Now going back to some of the conversations we had earlier on, you run big courses with 1,200, 1,500 students on them. Having the system automating some of the communications with students based on real activity within the system, I think could be a real time saver for you. And it allows the students to have quite a personalised journey through the LMS that's very specific to them. You can even pull in tokens here so that you can refer to the student by their name rather than just saying dear student. You can say dear Chloe. So Personalised Learning Designer in Open LMS is extremely strong around those all-important learning pathways. Okay. Flipping on, it might be worth going into the mobile experience. Oops. So once again, OpenLMS is available through a browser. So I can log into OpenLMS using the website. This is the student experience now I'm going to show you. So this is the home page, which we saw just a few minutes ago. It's scaled very well to the size of the mobile device. I can click log in, and I can log in as a student. And just type in my password. I'm on 3G for this, so there might be a slight delay in just the page loading. But once again, I can see the courses that I've got access to. So as a student, I've only got access to 4 courses here. One of the nice things that I can do is see the progress that I'm making through these courses. So on the home page, I'm actually getting a notification to say I've completed 30% of this course. So I'm actually seeing the progress that I'm making through it. So I could go into my computer forensics course, which I haven't done an awful lot of work on. And you'll see how responsive again. Responsive is really core to what we do at Blackboard. There's no point making an LMS these days that's only partially responsive. So we have made this as responsive as we possibly can. Once again, I'm getting these course notifications based on the rules that have been set up in this course, and I've got access to all of my course content as you saw. Yeah, I'll go into offline, that's fine. So I can navigate around this course. I can go into an assignment, and as you would probably expect, I can make the relevant submissions, very similar to what you can do in LearnUltra. So I can add a submission to this, and off I go. So I can go and get a file, and I can use the Rubrics text box to add video to this, I can add text to it, I can tell the member of staff what I'm actually doing, so on and so forth. So the actual process of using this in a browser is a very similar experience to what we get with LearnUltra. I want to dive into the OpenLMS app. So we have the app again to support it. No surprise there because I've already shown you a couple of apps this morning. This is the OpenLMS app. So I'll just wait for that to open up. So the advantages of using an app over the responsive design, again, similar to what we spoke about, you're getting push notifications out to a mobile app. You can't do that in responsive design. The fact that you're often left logged into an app speeds up access to course content. So I'm left logged into my Amazon app, for example, I can get straight onto Amazon and start ordering things. So it's the same sort of principle. I can go out to my courses on the app, and yes, there is an offline element to this. So if I go into my computer forensics course, I can click on the top right hand corner, and you'll see the option there for download course. Okay. I've also, similar to Learn, I've also got the option to download certain elements of the course. So I might not want to download the entire course. I might just want to download certain elements of the course. So I can do that here. I can scroll through my contents. I can scroll through the course participants. I can scroll through my grades. I've got all of these different things across the top that I can actually scroll through. So these are all the assessments that are available to me on this particular course. So the app is here, once again, to support the student's journey through course content. I can see the course content here, and I can dive into any one of these. So I can dive into the rubric test, open that up, and open up the browser, so I'm pushing out to the browser at this point. And that's an important point to make. If anything isn't supported in the app, in both the Blackboard LearnUltra instance or the OpenLMS instance, it's going to take you to the browser to continue the journey. So you're not left hanging, you're not left just with an error message, it's going to take you out to the place where it's actually working. So that is the course experience on a mobile device. Going back into the environment, I spoke at the start about customisations. So if I go into the go back to the course. So I've got system administration access here, and I can go down to the site administration, and I can start looking at some of the options around customisation. So I said that we are using the Snap theme, so I can actually go into the Snap options here, and I can start customising my site. And I just want to show you how easy this is to do. So my site name is currently BB OpenLMS. I could now change that to the name of this institution. Okay? I could give this site a description. So I've got welcome to your online learning environment. You could say something else. Okay? So you can just change this. You can change all of your logos here. You can change the site colours.
For example, UP don't call it, University of Victoria don't say Blackboard, they call it Click Up.
Yep.
That's their name for their LMS.
Okay. But I've got an institution that I work with, they call theirs 9. So, you know, we come across all sorts of names, so you can absolutely do it as you want to. You can change the cover display, so the image that appears on the front page can be changed here. You can actually carousel through different things, so you can have scrolling information on that home page. So try and make it a little bit more interactive, a little bit more engaging. You can look at the featured courses that you want to include on the home page. Maybe those trial courses you want to put there. You can even change the different colours, the different profile branding, so different users might get different experiences. So you can really put, so an academic might get a blue background, a student might get an orange background. You can actually take it down to that level of customisation using the snap theme option. So I wanted to show you how easy that was to do. I've mentioned that we've integrated Collaborate as the web conferencing solution. That's what we would do for OpenLMS as well. So I'm not going to take you back through Collaborate if you don't mind, because I've already shown you that this morning. I've mentioned that you can create forums and discussions on here. I did have his course introduction, so I can dive into a discussion here, and I can see what's going on. I can create new threads within this discussion. I can search the discussion as I need to. I can actually manage forum subscriptions. So when am I getting notified about things that are happening in this particular forum? So, yeah. So, in a course as well. So here we've got the option around groups, because groups has come up a few times. So in the course settings, I've got my users options to see who's enrolled on my course. But within here, I've got my groups options. So this is where I can actually start creating groups and different groupings and the overview of those groups. You'll notice down here that you can auto-create groups. And importantly, which is currently roadmap functionality for Learn Ultra, we've got the option to import groups from CSV. So that answers that question about importing it through the user interface, so we can do that in here as well. I'd still like to drill down further into group use cases, because there might be better ways to doing it in products using different courses, as I explained, so we can drill into that after today's meeting. So, but the group functionality is there as well. CSV.
So that answers the question for the gentleman at the back that we were having, you can do this.
Yeah. You also talked about in your scoring rubric around peer assessment. So we've got a specific peer assessment tool in here, and it's called Workshop. So you can effectively set up a space where students can make submissions, and then peers can come in and actually look at that work using a rubric and grade that work using peer assessment options. So that all of those settings are assembled just here, and you can say the grading strategy, so cumulative grading, comments, number of errors, or a rubric-based approach to peer assessment, and having submissions to pass, grade for submission, so on and so forth. So quite a lot of options that we can unpick there to support peer assessment.
Can I interrupt you just for 1 second?
Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
Hello!
I just want to know if you have the facility for the students to design the rubric and not the academic.
Oh, that's an interesting use case. I would suggest no at the moment. The student could design the rubric, give it to you, and then you build it in the system, but I don't believe the student can build a rubric themselves. That's a really interesting use case. So I'd like to go away and have a look at that. There might be a third-party tool that you can integrate with OpenLMS that allows you to do that. So again, there might be other ways to get to that answer. So great question. No, I actually like that. Students designing their own rubrics. Good idea. What else do I want to come about? So Vital Source and Bookshelf was one of the key tools, along with some others. So as mentioned, that would appear in the Create Learning Activity section. So Vital Source would appear as one of these links. You'd be able to link out to your bookshelf, and those textbooks would become available to your students. So that is where that would surface within the product. That would be via LTI. We can also do repositories of information. So we talked about the content collection in Learn Ultra. In Blackboard Open LMS, we've got the option here about creating repositories of files. So I don't have any set up in here at the moment, but you can effectively create a repository for this course, give users access, you can give students access, you can shape those repositories as you want to. So those repositories are there and are supported. See if I'm going to some grading. And if I go into something now, I've got Effectively, this is the user interface that I was explaining just a few moments ago. So if some students have made some submissions, it would actually display the student's work in this panel just here. And then off to the right-hand side, I'm able to give a grade, I'm able to give some feedback. And then underneath, if there was a rubric attached to this, the rubric would sit there as well, and I can grade using the rubric. You can annotate over the top of the student's work too, and then you can download the annotated version of that PDF. So it's quite nice that you can actually export the grading against that. Yes. So if I go back to the home page, so the reporting element in OpenLMS is slightly more difficult for us to show you because we don't have the layer of data that's actually generated to make these reports mean anything. So what I've took the liberty of doing, I've actually asked one of my colleagues just to create a short overview video to try and introduce the reporting capabilities of OpenLMS to you. So I'd like to try and play this video to you. So this is where we're going to find out where the sounds work. It's working through my laptop. I'll push it out. I don't think that's going to be very enough on time.
OpenLMS helps instructors keep track of their learners and make informed decisions by providing easy access to analytics insights. The OpenLMS reports provides more than 40 reports that have been built as a result of the combined analytical needs of our customer base, the community and industry best practices. There are 5 categories of reports. Course reports that are focused on what's been happening in the course in terms of activities, submissions, forums, and so on. Correlation reports that show the informed user insight. Let us review the demo script. OpenLMS helps instructors to keep track of their learners and make informed decisions by providing easy access to analytics insights. The OpenLMS reports provides more than 40 reports that have been built as a result of the combined analytical needs of our customer base, the community and industry best practices. There are 5 categories of reports. Course reports that are focused on what's been happening in the course in terms of activities, submissions, forums, and so on. Correlation reports that show the relationships between learners' activities and results. Exception reports that allow instructors to detect missing participation or activity. Learner view reports that gives instructors detailed visibility over a specific learner. And comparison reports that summarize and compare course, learner, and activity results. These reports can be filtered by different parameters that help instructors find the information they need and consume on a table format, graph view, or Excel format for later use. Platform administrators can also create and save their own reports by using SQL. These reports can also be downloaded to Excel in case they need it.
I think we got there. So that's just to give you an overview of the different things that you can do using the reporting. I think the reporting is really strong. 60 reports are there ready to go. It will just apply your student data against those reports to give you the relevant outcomes. So the reporting section sits on the course dashboard. So I can dive into the course dashboard and all of those reports will be found in here. And that's where I can run the course reports So they're out the box and they're ready to go. But like I say, you just need some data in the system in order to show the report. So I've got one of my colleagues to do that shortly, which is quite useful. Communications within OpenLMS, similar to what you can do in Blackboard Learn. So we've got Blackboard Collaborate. We've looked at forums briefly, but we've also got the course messages. So I've got a message here that's been received from one of my students. So I can click on that message, I can dive into that message, I can see the string of information that's coming through as the data's being exchanged backwards and forwards, and I can respond just down here to the student's needs and wants just there. So when Chloe next logs in, Chloe will see my response on that activity stream that will come up on the home page. And it's the same for forums. As things are happening in forums, then I can dive into the forum posts. I can look at what Chloe's been doing, I can reply, or I can start a new topic altogether. So I've got the options around those types of communication too. So that's quite useful. All of this is underpinned by a calendar. So next to the deadlines, I can dive in and view my calendar. So I can export these calendars, I can subscribe to other calendars and bring those into here, and I can click on certain days and set up new events so that I can stay on track. Anything that's set up from an academics point of view will automatically be populated into the calendar, which again is how you would expect the calendar functionality to actually work. And then with surveys, there is specific survey functionality within the course. You might have already seen it briefly, but I can effectively go to create learning activity and click on survey, and I can create a survey for my students. And again, the user interface that we'd use to create a survey is very familiar. Again, we try and keep things as consistent as possible. So I've got my name of my survey description, and then I can start building out the questions that I want to ask on the next screen, and build that out as I need. All of the courses within OpenLMS can be exported. So again, we're using that common cartridge from IMS Global. So we can export this course and drop it into another LMS, and likewise we can grab a course from another LMS and drop it into here, and have that content surfaced for you. And is there anything else that you would like me to?
So, I mean, in terms of the document that you have in your hands, we've tried to speed through this because we're about to run out of time. But the point is, I think what you'll see, what you'll notice is that these LMSs have similar features and functions. They do the same thing. They just look different, right? It's a completely different look and feel. It's a different way to navigate. It's a different workflow. But ultimately, the tools are still there, right? So it's really about what your preferences are. It's really about which one feels like the right fit for your organization. So if we go back to page 1 and we look at design and layout, small screen, offline version, content, ordering, content, organization, communication, are there any questions? Anything that you would like to specifically see? No? All right. Page 2. Discussion tools, collaboration, testing, e-portfolio, rubrics, peer assessment, on-screen marking. As we said, e-portfolio, Moodle itself doesn't have a built-in e-portfolio, but we've used Mahara, which plugs in. You can also plug into Ultra if you prefer that.
Yes.
Any questions on this page? Yes.
With regards to the assessment, I think you only mentioned it on the discussion forum. What about assessment, like assignment to assignment or quizzes?
So whether you can apply peer assessment to those?
Yeah.
It's actually a really good question. Not sure if that's on my head. Can we take that note and just come back to you on that one? I think it's an important question. I can't remember off the top of my head. So peer assessment, we can do that assessments for quizzes. Cool.
Anyone else? Nothing? Okay, next one's about gradebook, calendars, textbook publishers, file exchange, learning analytics, course evaluations, migrations and course export, which we just spoke about. Training materials is the same thing as I mentioned for Ultra. It's exactly the same. We have online help, we have materials help. You choose which one you like.
I've just brought up on screen the kind of grade centre, so I can see all of my students on the course, and then I can decide how I want to set it up. I can look at the grade history. I can view the overview report about what's going on, and I can run different reports from here and see them all. So effectively, I've got my students down the left, all of my assessments across the top again. I can see across and I can run reports on it. So just to give you a feel for the grading interface.
And then the final page is the more technical stuff, so browsers and supports and browsers. It's the same. Amazon still supports us. AWS is the underlying cloud technology, so the same for the backups, the same for how we archive. It's all the same.
And one of the key things with OpenLMS is the Moodle functionality for integrating with the student record system isn't as strong as it could be. So again, one of the things that we've done, we've laid on a tool called Conduit, which is it comes out the box with OpenLMS. So it allows you to integrate better with the student record system. So those pipes between your internal systems will be much better with OpenLMS than if it was just core Moodle, because actually you might struggle to get some of the data in and out with core Moodle.
Moodle Vanilla has a lot of issues when it comes to integrating with this information.
And just to give you
so
some,
we had to fix that.
yeah, and just to give you some idea on our release cadence, we actually hold. So Moodle will do a release of the product twice a year. We actually run 6 months behind the release date from Moodle, because there will be bugs and stuff that come out because it's a community developed tool. So we wait for those bugs to be worked through and released, okay? And then we will layer our functionality on top of it and deliver it 6 months behind core Moodle. That's absolutely deliberate because this is a mission critical student system. I'm sure you don't want us to be implementing something with a ton of bugs in it. This is an enterprise level solution for Moodle, so we try to make that core platform as stable as possible. So I just want to put some context onto how we go about doing those releases. Still 99.9% uptime. So
the other thing that's important to mention is that we have this plug-in matrix with OpenLMS, and what that means is the Moodle community is massive, and they create products, and other publishers create products, and third-party partners create products, and you want to be able to use those tools in your Moodle OpenLMS environment. So we have a plug-in matrix. And the plugin matrix gives you already a list of tools that we've already certified for you, so that you don't have to go and figure out, oh, does this tool actually work with the LMS? So we've gone and we've asked clients, which are the most prominently used plugins. We've certified them for you, so you can already go ahead and plug them in. And if there are others that you want, perhaps you've got an IT department that's super keen to build tools. In that case, you could build it, we could certify it, and plug it in. We just want to make sure that it's good code, because the last thing we want is bad code to bring down your whole system. Trust me, it happens with other clients. So you want to be able to make sure we certify the code that it's healthy code.
so that's the plugin matrix. It's on help.blackboard.com. Pretty much everything you've seen today, you can do a deeper dive in on help.blackboard.com. It's brilliant. We've got all of our products down the left-hand side. So I know we've just shown OpenLMS because I'm focused on that at the moment, but you'd see Learn All Tree, you'd see Blackboard Collaborate, you'd see Blackboard Ally, you'd see Safeassign on there, so you can do a deep dive into any of our products. This is the plugin matrix. This doesn't include LTI tools, because LTI tools are using standard, so if it's LTI compliant, we can plug into it, end of. Okay, simple as. It really is that straightforward. These are the plugins, so these are more code-based integrations, okay? They're all publishers.
Are there any other questions about OpenLMS that we can answer for you? Questions that you might have, concerns? I'm sure the gentleman in the back feels happy about the groups. Is there something else? Yes.
One question that I didn't get is with regards to uploading files from the student side. Does it work the same as Blackboard Ultra, whereby a student can just upload a file from their own device?
Yes. Yeah. It works.
File sharing amongst the groups.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a pretty standard functionality.
Okay.
Yes. So coming back to this, so you've seen 2 LMSs today from one company. I've explained to you why we do that. And I'm going to come back to our core messaging, which is we believe in an ecosystem. We believe that there needs to be a certain amount of autonomy for the teachers. We believe that it's a puzzle, right? That these puzzle pieces have to fit together to meet a bigger image, right? Strong at the core, open at the periphery. These are some of the universities and institutions in South Africa today. We are by far the biggest, of the 26 higher education institutions in South Africa, most of them are using Blackboard. So you would be part of a community of practice. That means you would ultimately be joining our events, participating in our online programs. We've got, annually, we've got a competition for lecturers who design the best courses. We call it the exemplary course program. You can win money, you can win trips overseas. You're part of a community of practice. and already an established community of practice in this country.
It might just be worth pointing out that our annual conference globally was actually in Texas this year, so there'll be opportunity to go and visit Texas, for example, go and see what other people are doing across the globe, not just in this region as well, so that's quite nice.
Yeah, we have a big Blackboard World every year,
Yeah.
which happens in July. It's usually in the States, and then we have a more local one for Africa and the Middle East, and that happens in Dubai in March. So it depends on your travel budgets and your availability and what presentations you can.
But it's nice to know that you're part of that wider community so that you can share great things that you're doing and learn from what other people are doing to bring the best to your institution, and Blackboard brings that power to the table.
I just flew with Phoenix, UNISA flew with me to the States, and we went to visit the Phoenix University because they're massive. So is UNISA, who's also on Sakai, who's also leaving Sakai. And so it's a great opportunity for you to network with organizations of a similar mind. And then this is your vision document that I found online, and I just found there's a couple of quotes here that I found super interesting. From your strategic objectives, it says, optimize the generation of income through teaching, research contracts, research fees, donations, and endowment. I spoke earlier about that third-party income. It seems like WITS actually does care about third-party income. So the ability to have a tool that sits on top of your LMS that allows for that e-commerce function is a value add that we bring that no one else does. If we look at the second one, reinvigorate WITS' reputation for supporting the participation of students and scholars from all diverse backgrounds. We've showed you alternative accessible formats, right? If you're from a background where you're a first-generation student and English is not your first language, we should be having ways for them to consume content that make them equally able to succeed in their organizations, right? Next one. Ensure that academics are adept at using IT to enhance their teaching, right? We have a program called the Digital Teaching and Learning Series. It's an e-teacher series. It's got nothing to do with product. It's got to do with being an online educator. How do I be an online educator? What are the best practices? What are the theories behind it? And then lastly, I've got here, ensure that the data and information needed for the administration management of the institution will be available. We've spoken a lot about data today. How do we surface data? There's rich data sitting in your LMS. There's rich data sitting in your SIS. How do we make those speak together, surface that, and make it consumable? And so that's it. I just saw this quote on your website, and I thought it was interesting that your quote matches ours. Yours says, the University of WITS is a research-intensive public higher education institution in South Africa that competes globally and acts locally. Our statement is that Blackboard is an education technology company that thinks globally and acts locally. I don't think that's a coincidence. And that's a thank you from us. We really value your time. I know it's been a long day, and I believe you've still got someone else coming in to chat to you, but we really value your input and time, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard and Brandon, for coming out.
So you've done quite a lot of work in South Africa. I don't think, maybe I missed somebody ask the question. Do you support localization if we want to have the platform available in different languages for the interface?
So, yeah, so all of our languages that we currently support are published on our help pages.
Okay.
So we've got standard language packs that ship with the product. So have a look through those to see if they meet your use cases. You can build additional language packs on top, or we can help you with that. We just need to talk about it so that we know what we're doing. One of the really nice things about those language packs is you can tweak them as well. So what I call courses, you might call module. So that's okay. Go into the language pack and change it to suit the terminology of your institution. So yes, is the answer.
So in terms of the interface, right, you're talking about changing the interface itself. So the interface is in English and then 15 other languages, French, Portuguese, Spanish, but not African languages, right? So what we propose to our community of practice, right? I just showed you we're involved with a large community. We've said to them, hey, you know, if you come to us and said to us, we as a university community of South Africa have chosen that we want an interface in Xhosa, well then why not? Why wouldn't we work together as a community and create a language pack for that? So far no one has really engaged. Everyone says, oh, English is fine. The content is what matters. If the content is in Afrikaans, that's fine. If the content is in Xhosa, that's fine. But we are very, it's totally possible, and it would take a community.
So from the universities that are using your products, are they using Moodle or are they using the Blackboard?
Blackboard Learn product.
Countrywide, just in terms of higher education institutions, and they've got some colleges and so on, but of the 26 universities, I think 10 of them are using Blackboard. So there are universities using Moodle, but not the Blackboard offering. So I think there's about 5 using Moodle and another 5 using Safeassign probably. But the main one in South Africa is
Basically, yes, that's right. If the universities are not using Blackboard, they're probably using Moodle.
So we've got those three.
There's no other competitor.
There's nothing else in higher education.
Because there's no local support for it. No other competitor has the local support, and you have to have local support.
Okay, can I ask, why would they want, the ones that haven't chosen Ultra, why did they choose Moodle? Well, what drove it, like from your experience?
There's so many reasons. So it could be anything from the culture of the institution. So let's use UCT as an example, right? UCT is a massive open source university. Their ICT department gets massive funding. So they build their own platforms. It's part of their culture. It's inbred into them. They don't outsource. So that's a completely different discussion, right? And then you've got other institutions who are on the other end of the spectrum who are kind of, online learning is a nice to have rather than a must have. So they dabble with it a little bit, and it'll be a couple of deans or teachers that'll have a server running under their desk that's running Moodle, and then everything in between. So there's a spectrum of it. I think it comes down to culture. It comes down to funding. You need a lot of funding if you want to do open source. You need an organization that is driving in the same direction, right? In many cases, you've got organizations where half of the faculty are like, yay for open source, and the other half of the faculty are no for open source. So it's hard for me to answer that. You'd have to ask those schools themselves, but based on the feedback they've given me, it's historical, it's political, it's economical, it's cultural.
I think one of the other things is that institutions have used open source for a long time, which is fine. But this sort of software has become more enterprise level software. It's become a core of the institution. It's where all academic submissions go through. So it's not something that you can really afford to get wrong. It's something that needs to be operated very professionally and very robustly. And I think having an open source product pinning that up scares some institutions as well. So going to a more corporate enterprise level, there is a switch there, but at least you've then got the robustness of a company like Blackboard stood behind you saying, we're going to make sure that this is on 99.97% of the time. You focus on the education, we'll focus on the technology, because that's going to help drive your students forward. We'll give you the tools and the data to help you do that. So I think, certainly from my experience, that's been a bit of a shift as well, that this is now mission critical enterprise level software, and that's what's required at this point. So
I think in principle you start off making a decision, do we want to do open source or do we want to do proprietary software? So if you think proprietary software, you're going to look at Desire to Learn, Blackboard, those are the big ones. You look at open source and depending on how you look at it, some people look at Canvas as open source, but it's kind of not, in the same way as their offering of Moodle is not really open source anymore, because they've taken the basic code and they've fixed it and it's a separate offering. So, but having decided open source or proprietary worldwide, Moodle is by far the largest LMS. Proprietary open source, Moodle is the biggest one by far. In North America, Canvas is the biggest, then Blackboard, then Moodle, then Desire to Learn, then Safeassign. In terms of open source communities, Moodle is like really open. So anybody can contribute to a repository, and they do their own little thingies and they make it available, and the institution kind of takes normally the latest stable release or the one previous like Blackboard does, and you pick your tools that you want to integrate. Sakai's community works a little bit different. It's more of there's a peripheral community that works like Moodle, but there's a central organization called Aperio, and they kind of guide the development direction of the open community. So people belong to Aperio and we decide together where the development goes. So it's not as open as Moodle. So there's kind of basic, almost philosophical ways of looking at open source. Do you want to be entirely open, or do you want to have some direction about where the openness goes towards? Or you're going to look at proprietary software like Blackboard and Canvas. North America, just for interest's sake, North America at the moment, Canvas is the biggest. Blackboard is slightly behind. Moodle is a little bit down the list. Desire to Learn is quite a lot down the list. And I think Canvas Sakai is about 2% market penetration, just worldwide. In South Africa, I see that was Blackboard by far. Canvas and Canvas, Moodle, and Sakai is pretty much. The thing with open source is if you want to go open source, you've got to do it the way that UNISA does, or the way that UCT does. You have to have a support environment on campus to make that work properly. If you don't want to invest heavily in the support infrastructure on campus, normally people go proprietary, and people who know what they're doing it every day, and we pay them lots of money.
I think we can just layer on the top that our product management with the development of Blackboard Learn Ultra are more involved in the community than ever before. So our product managers will be more than happy to have a conversation with you. If you've got specific use cases, and one of them could be around those large group courses, you could actually tell us how it works, your institution. We'll get that use case from multiple institutions, and then we'll look at how we move that forward. And we've seen multiple strands of work that have helped develop Learn Ultra to that methodology of actually speaking to the institution, getting the use case, putting a plan in place, and actually developing out the functionality. So even though we are proprietary software, the input from the community is critical, because we're building for you, we're building for your students. We can't just go off on a tangent, because that's not a great business model. We have to build for what is right for the students and for academics, and more so the institution from a data point.
I mean, I think there's a very big difference between a technology provider and a partner, right? That's a very, very big difference. We're not a technology provider, we're a partner. I mean, UP and UJ, UFS, Walter Sisulu, these guys sit at the table with our CEO, and these guys sit there and say, hey, this is the direction, this is the trends in South Africa, this is where we're struggling, this is what the product direction should be. They give us the input that we need to direct the product. That's what comes with partnership. And that's the difference between a technology provider who's going to rock up here and drop off some software versus someone who's going to partner with you and try and walk a journey with you. I think there was a question.
Okay, we better pause because it is 1:30.
Anyway, so thanks for attending the session. There's another one starting at 2 o'clock, scheduled up to 4 o'clock. That'll be Sakai. Open South Africa, we need to do an demonstration for us as well. Then on Wednesday, I don't have those, you might have missed it on Wednesday, we've got Open edX coming in, 10 to 12, and on Thursday we've got Canvas doing an online presentation for us. They're going to stream it, so you might be able to actually just log in from your office to look at the Canvas one. Actually, the Open edX one also is going to be remote, so you might be able to do that from your office. But we'll have coffee and cookies.
Thank you so much, everybody. It's lovely to have come along today, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks to the guys from Blackboard for coming and showing some time with us.
No worries, thank you.
And the guys from Microsoft. And the guys who made it. Your evaluation forms, these don't